Chapter 11:21. Rua Shuang. Looking at the young lady, the mysterious lady's face was full of doting. "Greetings, mother." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house bowed. If Qin Feiyang was here, he would be dumbfounded. This young lady was actually the daughter of the mysterious lady. The mysterious lady nodded and asked with a smile, "What's the matter?" The young lady nodded and said, "Qin Feiyang has succeeded." The mysterious lady's spirit was lifted. The young lady said with melancholy, "But now we are all in trouble." "What trouble?" The mysterious lady's face sank slightly. The young lady said, "Teacher's identity has been exposed, and his life and death are unknown. Qin Feiyang is also trapped in Black Cloud Valley by the Mu family." "What?" The mysterious lady's body trembled and said in surprise, "How did he expose his identity?" "Because of the chief tower master. This person's shrewdness is too terrifying. All these years he has been disguising himself as Pang Su and lurking around me to monitor me." The young lady said with hatred, "What about Pang Su himself?" The mysterious lady said, "He was killed by them long ago." The young lady said. The mysterious lady was shocked and hurriedly said, "Then all these years have you?" "No. Although the staff of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion are all my confidants, I have always been very cautious. I have never mentioned our matter to them, let alone your identity." The young lady said. The mysterious lady heaved a sigh of relief and asked, "Qin Feiyang is trapped in Black Cloud Valley by the Mu family. So the Mu family is also after the divine crystal?" "Yes." The young lady nodded. "They actually want to get their hands on the divine crystal." The mysterious lady's face was full of disgust, and then said, "Don't be impulsive. I will think of a way to save Qin Feiyang." The young lady said, "You have to be fast. After all, the Mu family has more than one fake god, Yigleo." The mysterious lady nodded, and then the shadow quickly dissipated. Black Cloud Valley. Swish. About half an hour passed. 3 figures silently descended in the sky above the valley. One of them was the Mu family's great ancestor. The other 2. The person on the left was wearing a pitch-black robe and a hat that covered his entire body. On his face, there was also a mask that covered his entire face. Only his eyes were exposed. His eyes were like those of an eagle, emitting a sharp light. That was right. He was Yigleo. The person on the right was wearing a snow-white robe. His body was stooped, and his hair was white. He also wore a mask on his face, hiding his true appearance. However, the aura he exuded was even stronger than Yigleo's. Greetings to the 2 ancestors. Mu Qing and the second ancestor of the Mu family hurriedly bowed. "Yes." Yigleo nodded and asked, "Where is Qin Feiyang now?" The white-robed old man stood to the side without saying a word, giving off a profound feeling. "It's right below here." Mu Qing pointed at the valley below. Yigleo looked down at the valley and said indifferently, "Qin Feiyang, come out." "Yes." "Inside the castle." Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Even Yigleo is here. It seems that they are determined to get it. This is enough to show that the divine crystal is indeed not an ordinary thing." Fatso's eyes were shining. Not only did the main tower regard it as a treasure, but even the Mu family and the mysterious lady were so eager for it. What was the use of this divine crystal? What should we do? Lu Hong was slightly flustered. The arrival of a fake god was not a trivial matter. "Don't worry. I believe that the mysterious lady will be here soon," Qin Feiyang said. Outside, seeing that Qin Feiyang did not appear for a long time, Yigleo's eyes gradually revealed a ray of cold light. The white-robed old man next to him suddenly said, "Old A, let's directly use our divine sense to forcibly break his castle." "Okay." Yigleo nodded. Boom! Immediately, 2 invisible forces swept out from the top of their heads and rushed into the valley below. Divine sense was formed by a person's will. It was invisible and colorless, but it had the power to penetrate everything. Moreover, no matter how small the thing was, it could be clearly captured with divine sense. It was not an exaggeration to say that even a speck of dust could not escape. Although divine sense was heaven-defying, not everyone had it. Only those who had stepped into the fake God realm could condense divine sense. The two used their divine sense to constantly search the valley. Found it. Suddenly, Yigleo and the white-robed old man's eyes flashed a ray of light at the same time. Somewhere on the ground in the valley, they caught an unusual speck of dust. This speck of dust was formed by the castle. The two immediately controlled their divine sense and madly rushed towards the castle. Rumble! The castle immediately began to shake violently. What's going on? Inside the ancient castle, Qin Feiyang and the others turned pale with fright. This was the first time such a situation had happened. Viper said worriedly, "They won't have a way to enter the castle, right?" Heard of it. Everyone's heart suddenly sank. "Don't panic. I don't think the castle can be broken so easily," Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. The castle had been shaking, producing a deafening roar. And outside, although it was impossible to see the expressions of Yigleo and the white-robed old man, the eyes of the two became a little dignified. If one looked carefully, they would even find that there were some beads of sweat on their temples. A moment passed. The two suddenly withdrew their divine sense, their eyes full of surprise. "What's wrong?" the Mu clan's great ancestor asked. Yigleo said, "We can't break the castle." "What?" Mu Qing and the other two looked at each other. Two quasi-divinities working together were actually unable to break through this ancient castle. Just what level was this ancient castle? Yigleo sighed. It should be that our divine sense is not strong enough. After all, we are only fake gods. Then what should we do now? Mu Qing seemed to be at a loss. No hurry. He must be pinning his hopes on the mysterious madam now. As long as we can kill the mysterious madam, his hopes will naturally be dashed. When that time comes, he will naturally compromise with us. Yigleo pondered for a moment and said, "That makes sense." Mu Qing nodded. Yigleo turned to look at the white-robed old man and said, "Let's go down and hide first. When the mysterious madam appears, we will immediately kill her with lightning speed." The white-robed old man nodded. Whoosh! The two immediately swooped down and disappeared into the forest. With the two ancestors here, there will definitely be no mistakes, Mu Qing said with a smile. The two ancestors of the Mu family were also full of smiles. Time passed breath by breath. Suddenly, a man and a woman landed in the sky above Black Cloud Valley. The woman was the mysterious madam. The man was more than one. 9 meters tall, middle-aged with shoulder-length hair. His facial features were regular, and he wore a snow-white robe that was spotless. His whole body exuded an extremely powerful aura. His eyes were especially special, as if they were condensed from ice, crystal clear, and flashing with a ray of divine light. That's right. He was the fake god who went with the mysterious madam to the great Qin Empire to rescue Qin Feiyang. They're here. Sensing the two people's aura, Mu Qing and the other two looked up at the mysterious madam and the middle-aged man in unison. "We meet again." The mysterious madam glanced at the three people, and a piercing cold light flashed in her eyes. Mu Qing said, "Yes, enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road." The mysterious madam raised her eyebrows and said, "Who are you to talk to me?" Out of nowhere, a powerful oppressive force rushed towards Mu Qing. "Then do we have the right to talk to you?" The two ancestors of the Mu family stepped in front of Mu Qing, blocking the pressure of the mysterious madam. Their eyes flashed with killing intent. The mysterious madam smiled coldly and looked around. She said in surprise, "Just the three of you?" "What, Do you still want to kill us? The Mu family will not be afraid of you. The second ancestor of the Mu family said, I admit that the Mu family is very strong, but if it's just the three of you, then I can kill you now. The mysterious madam said coldly. As soon as her voice fell, the middle-aged man next to her immediately released his divine power and rushed toward Mu Qing and the other two. Mu Qing and the other two sneered. The mysterious madam raised her eyebrows. Facing the divine power of a fake god, they dared to be so fearless? Could it be all of a sudden? A thought crawled up in her mind, and she quickly lowered her head and scanned the surrounding mountains and rivers. I've been waiting for you for a long time. At the same time, accompanied by a cold shout, Yigleo and the middle-aged man rushed into the sky like lightning. Yigleo went straight to the mysterious madam. The white-robed old man also used thunderous methods to kill the middle-aged man. There's an ambush! The mysterious madam's face darkened. Looking at the white-robed old man, she sneered. I didn't expect even you to come out of seclusion. It seems that the Mu family cares a lot about divine crystals. The white-robed old man glanced at her, but did not speak. His eyes were as cold as a blade, and he slapped the middle-aged man. His palm was shining with divine light. That was not battle chi. It was divine power. To be exact, it was the power of a fake god. Battle chi and the power of a fake god were not on the same level at all. It was like an ant and an elephant. Just as the white-robed old man's power of a fake god emerged, in an instant, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Screams were everywhere, as if doomsday had arrived. So strong! Mu Qing's pupils contracted. In front of a fake god, a battle sage like them could kill them countless times with just a breath. Humph! At the same time, the middle-aged man snorted from his nose and did not retreat. He raised his arm and punched out. Seeing this, the two ancestors of the Mu family quickly took Mu Qing and retreated. Although they were only one step away from becoming a fake god, this step was like a natural moat that could not be crossed. It was not an exaggeration to say that a fake god could kill a 9-star battle emperor in a snap of his fingers, so they did not dare to get too close. In an instant, a fist and a palm collided. A destructive divine power storm rose out of the ground, with the middle-aged man and the white-robed old man as the center, roaring in all directions. Wherever it went, the earth cracked crazily and the void distorted violently, as if it had reached the critical point of shattering. In just the blink of an eye, the land within a radius of dozens of miles was completely razed to the ground. The cracks were so deep that they could not see the bottom. Chapter 11:22. Although the mysterious lady was not a false god, she was not afraid of Yigleo at all. She stared at Yigleo with a cold luster in her eyes, and a divine light surged in her palm. You're not dodging. Seeing this, Yigleo was rather surprised. He could see through the mysterious lady's cultivation at a glance. 9-star War Emperor. 9-star War Emperor was already considered to be at the top of the pyramid in the Forgotten Continent. But in front of a false god like him, it was nothing. She was actually prepared to fight him head-on. Could it be that she was hiding some tricks? But then, he shook his head. Even if this woman had some tricks up her sleeve, facing the absolute suppression of cultivation, she wouldn't be able to cause any big waves. You're courting death. Yigleo's gaze turned cold. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist and punched towards the mysterious lady's face. The power of the false god roared, emitting the power to destroy the world. This punch, it contained his peak power and was about to shatter the void. But the mysterious lady just chuckled. Her seemingly delicate arm suddenly raised and slapped Yigleo's fist. Boom! Accompanied by an earth-shattering sound. The two of them were sent flying at the same time, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of their mouths. How is this possible? Yigleo's expression changed drastically. A mere 9-star war emperor could actually hurt him? Boom! Just as he was in shock, the mysterious lady stabilized herself in the air, and her entire body erupted with a monstrous aura. This aura had already surpassed that of a 9-star war emperor. You actually... Yigleo was dumbfounded. The white-robed old man also immediately stopped and looked at the mysterious lady in disbelief. This woman was also a false god. The mysterious lady looked at the two of them and smiled. "I'm sorry. I just recovered my cultivation a while ago." "Recovered your cultivation?" The two of them were surprised. Shouldn't it be a breakthrough in cultivation? How could it be a recovery? Breaking through and recovering were two completely different things. Breaking through one's cultivation base was breaking through from one realm to a completely new realm. But recovering one's cultivation was recovering one's previous cultivation. In other words, this woman used to be a false god? Yigleo shouted. "Who the hell are you? If you were really a fake god in the past, then we should know you. But why don't we have any impression of you?" "Who am I?" "Hee hee, ha ha. I'm someone you never want to see." The mysterious madam laughed hysterically, but her eyes were filled with hatred. "Stop pretending," Yigleo said sternly. The mysterious madam stopped laughing and looked at Yigleo and the young man. She smiled sinisterly and said, "Come on then. Let's see who will emerge victorious today." Boom! The four of them attacked at almost the same time. For the sake of the divine crystals, none of them were willing to back down. They slaughtered their way up into the sky, causing the weather to change. Whoosh! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang and Wolf King appeared out of thin air. They stood on the broken ground and raised their heads to look at the four people. "That bitch is actually a false god." Wolf King's pupils contracted. Qin Feiyang's face was also filled with shock. They had underestimated the mysterious madam's strength time and time again. When they first met in White Fox City, they thought that the mysterious madam was only a war saint. But who would have thought that she would burst out with the cultivation of a war king? And now she had become a false god. They were as confused as Yigleo and the young man. What was the origin of this woman? Who is he? When he saw the old man in white robe, Qin Feiyang was stunned. He had never seen this person before. "Little bastard, you're finally willing to come out." Suddenly, a cold voice entered Qin Feiyang and Wolf King's ears. The man and the wolf retracted their gazes and turned their heads to see the Mu family's second ancestor rushing towards them. His eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. Not good. Hearing the voice, the mysterious madam's expression changed. She lowered her head to look at Qin Feiyang and shouted, "Go to the castle immediately. Wait for us to deal with them, then come out." Being entangled by Yigleo and the old man in white robe, neither she nor the middle-aged man could divert their attention to protect Qin Feiyang. And Qin Feiyang's cultivation was only a 4-star war saint. How could he be a match for the Mu family's second ancestor? So, when she saw Qin Feiyang coming out of the castle, she immediately became nervous. Of course, what made her nervous was definitely not Qin Feiyang's safety, but the divine crystal. "Qin Feiyang, the conditions I offered before still count. As long as you hand over the divine crystal, we will think of a way to take down that woman and save Yan Wei's clansmen." Hearing the mysterious madam's words, Mu Qing also hurriedly said. He was also afraid that Qin Feiyang would hide in the castle again. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered uncertainly. "I didn't expect you to offer such conditions, but you want to take me down with just your Mu family. You're too naive." The mysterious madam sneered presumptuously. Mu Qing's face darkened. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Do you see that old man in white robe? He's the old ancestor of my Mu family, only one step away from stepping into the true war god realm. As long as he has some time, he will definitely take down that woman. Only one step away. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Even in the same realm, there were differences in strength. Under normal circumstances, those who just broke through were definitely not as strong as those who broke through earlier. That's right, this old man is only one step away from stepping into the war god realm. When the war god appears, all living things are ants, so young man, you must adapt to the situation. The old man in white robe finally opened his mouth. His voice was like a bell shaking the sky. The threat in his words was not concealed at all. So what if I'm only one step away? I still won't lose to you. The middle-aged man laughed disdainfully. He went all out, fighting with the old man in white robe until the sky turned dark. They were actually neck and neck. The more time passed, the more the old man in white robe was surprised. Finally, with a tone of disbelief, he asked, "Don't tell me you're also only one step away." "What do you think?" The middle-aged man coldly snorted. "Impossible. A strong person like you would definitely not be unknown. Could it be that you're not from the Forgotten Continent?" The old man in white robe was shocked. "Born and raised here. But your Mu family, back then the main tower took you in and gave you a place in the Forgotten Continent. But what about you? It's fine if you're not grateful, but you're actually scheming against the main tower. I really don't understand. How can there be such shameless people like you in this world?" The middle-aged man sneered. "The winner is the king, the loser is the bandit. This is a truth that has never changed. And my Mu family, with the blood of a king flowing in our veins, we are born with pride. How can we tolerate you lowly ants, wantonly standing on our heads and behaving atrociously?" The old man in white robe roared, both of his hands stretched out, and the power of a fake god flooded the sky. Rumble! The void cracked open. A black spatial storm roared out from the crack, sweeping across the land. The void actually shattered. Looking at this scene, Qin Feiyang and Wolf King's eyes almost popped out. Shattering the void was a very vague legend. In the past, they also never believed that there was anyone in this world who could shatter the void. But at this moment, all of this happened in front of their eyes. Too shocking, too terrifying. To be able to shatter the void. Was the strength of a fake god so terrifying? Now, it's not up to you whether you want to hand over the divinity crystal or not. At the same time, the Mu family's second ancestor rushed over the emperor's aura like a waterfall, shrouding Qin Feiyang and Wolf King. Oh no, the mysterious lady's face changed. "Mu family, are you bullying us because we don't have enough people?" But at this time, a violent roar sounded, and another old man in black clothes wearing a black mask descended in the sky above Black Cloud Valley. Boom! The old man in black's aura soared into the sky, and as soon as he appeared, he swooped down in front of the Mu family's second ancestor, like lightning, and slammed down with his palm. Ah! Accompanied by a shrill scream, the Mu family's second ancestor's blood splattered across the sky, leaving no bones behind. A dignified 9-star combat emperor was killed in seconds, just like that. Second brother, second ancestor. In the distance, the Mu family's great ancestor and Mu Qing suddenly cried out in grief. Above the sky, Yigleo and the white-robed old man also changed color and hurriedly looked at the old man in black, their eyes full of horror. It was actually another fake god. "Humph! Come to my forgotten continent, not obediently stay. All day long doing evil. Let me tell you, I've tolerated you for a long time." The old man in black glanced at Yigleo and Mu Qing, his eyes full of coldness. As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly raised his arm and pointed his index finger in the air. Whoosh! Immediately, a bright fake god's power cut through the sky and charged towards Mu Qing and the Mu family's great ancestor. Damn it! Yigleo's face changed and hurriedly pushed back the mysterious lady with a palm. He swooped down like lightning and landed in front of Mu Qing and the great ancestor, then raised his hand and waved. A fake god's power burst out and collided with the divine power of the old man in black. The moment the divine power met, the two took a few steps back at the same time, their faces faintly pale. Yiglao looked at the old man in black, then looked at the mysterious lady and the middle-aged man, and shouted unwillingly, "Let's go!" After saying that, he waved his big sleeve, rolled up Mu Qing and the great ancestor, turned around and left without looking back. "We won't let this matter go. And you, Qin Feiyang!" The white-robed old man pushed the middle-aged man away with a palm, looked gloomily at Qin Feiyang below, and also turned around and disappeared like lightning. Phew! Seeing them leave, the middle-aged man and the mysterious lady also let out a long breath. The Mu family has suffered a big loss this time, Wolf King said with a sneaky smile. Not only did they not get the divine crystal, but they also lost the second ancestor of the Mu family. It could be said that they suffered a double loss. They deserve it, Qin Feiyang whispered, without the slightest sympathy. Oh no, but at this time, the old man in black suddenly exclaimed, looked up at the mysterious lady and the middle-aged man, and said, "Madam, the fluctuations of the battle here have been sensed by the people of the main tower. I guess they have found us. Quickly leave." After saying that, he opened a portal. What? The two's eyes trembled, and they quickly flew down. The mysterious lady looked at the middle-aged man and said in a deep voice, "Quickly erase the aura here." The middle-aged man nodded and waved his hand. An invisible force suddenly surged out in all directions. Wherever it went, the fluctuations of the battle immediately calmed down, and the residual aura disappeared without a trace. "Let's go." The mysterious lady waved her hand, rolled up Qin Feiyang and Wolf King, and turned around and entered the portal. Chapter 11:23. Not long after the portal dissipated, for figures cut through the sky and landed in the sky above Black Cloud Valley. It was the chief tower master, Wang Su, and the two old men from the land of inheritance. The battle fluctuations we sensed before should have come from here. Looking at the shattered ground, Wang Su's face sank. One of the old men said, "It's a pity that the aura here has been deliberately erased. We don't know who is fighting, but judging from the degree of destruction, the person who fought is not weaker than this old man." Wang Su and the chief tower master were shocked. The old man clenched his hand and said, "Investigate immediately, start with the Mu family, because in the Forgotten Continent, except for our chief tower and the mysterious force behind Qin Feiyang, only the Mu family has false gods." Yes, the chief tower master nodded. Then the old man opened the portal and was ready to leave. Everyone wait. But at this moment, a gloomy voice sounded. The chief tower master and the other three were shocked. There are people hiding nearby and they didn't notice? Whoosh! Before the voice fell, for figures came from the distance like lightning and landed in front of the chief tower master. It was Mu Qing and the other three. In fact, they didn't really leave before, they just pretended to leave. "It's really you." Seeing Yiglao and Mu Qing covered in blood, the chief tower master's eyes sank slightly. "Yes, just now we were fighting with Qin Feiyang and the others." The Mu family's great ancestor said. "Why did you fight?" the chief tower master asked. "God crystals," the Mu family's great ancestor said. The chief tower master and the other three's faces suddenly sank. The Mu family's great ancestor said in a deep voice, "I know now. You must think that we have snatched the god crystals from Qin Feiyang, but I can tell you responsibly that we failed." "What? You sent 2 false gods and you still failed?" The 4 were surprised. The Mu family's great ancestor said, "We have 2 false gods, but Qin Feiyang has 3. "Impossible." The chief tower master shook his head. False gods are not cabbages. How can there be 3 of them? This is the truth. That mysterious woman, I believe you all know her. She is also a false god. Mu Jia's great ancestor said. Chief Pagoda Master's eyes trembled as he asked, "Then who are the other 2 fake gods?" A middle-aged man in white and a masked old man in black. I've never seen them before. My second brother died at the hands of that black-clothed masked old man. The Mu family's great ancestor said. His old eyes were filled with hatred. The black-clothed masked old man should be him. Then he looked at the Mu family's ancestor and sneered. Serves you right. Serves you right? The Mu clan's ancestor was furious. You don't think that the Mu clan is also after the divine crystals, do you? Isn't that so? The chief tower master said. No. We came to intercept Qin Feiyang in order to help your main pagoda. After all, it was your main tower that took my Mu family, allowing my Mu family to have a place in the Forgotten Continent. The great ancestor of the Mu family said without blushing or skipping a beat. Is that so? The chief tower master's eyes narrowed slightly. Nonsense. Although my Mu family is not a kind family, we still know how to repay kindness. The Mu family's ancestor said angrily. The chief tower master said, If that's the case, then why didn't you tell us where Qin Feiyang is in the first place? Why did you come to snatch the divine crystals yourself? Because we wanted to give you a surprise, but who knew that Qin Feiyang was hiding so many fake gods behind him? Damn it! The Mu family's ancestor clenched his hands. His old eyes flashed with a cold light. The chief tower master frowned and said, Old Wang, 2 ancestors, do you think what the Mu family's ancestors said is true? It's hard to judge, but now we don't have time to think about these problems. Getting back the divine crystals is more important. And didn't the Mu family say that they want to help us? Then let them help us to the end, and let them come with us to find Qin Feiyang. Wang Su and the other 2 secretly said. The chief tower master said, This is not appropriate. What if the Mu family doesn't mean what they say and snatch the divine crystals when we're not paying attention? So, we have to pay attention to them at all times. Moreover, Qin Feiyang has 3 fake gods around him. If we don't join forces with the Mu family, we won't be able to get it back. Wang Su said. Okay, the chief tower master secretly responded. Looking at Mu Qing and the other 3, he nodded and said, Okay, I believe in you. Now, I want to ask for your help. No problem. They killed my second brother. This blood feud must be paid with their lives. The Mu family's ancestor said. The chief tower master looked at him deeply and asked, Then do you know where they are now? Qing, the Mu family's ancestor shouted. Mu Qing nodded, and a strange light immediately appeared in her eyes. Above a mountain range, Qin Feiyang and the others appeared out of thin air. Where is this? Qin Feiyang and Wolf King glanced down in surprise, because just in this area they could sense the aura of dozens of emperor beasts. Fire Phoenix, mountain range, the black-clothed old man said. So it's here. Qin Feiyang suddenly realized. At that time, Lian and Fatso helped Yan Wei open the door of potential in this place. The mysterious lady looked at the black-clothed old man and sighed. Fortunately, you came in time. Otherwise, we would be in big trouble this time. If it was just Yigleo and the white-robed old man, she and the middle-aged man could still deal with them. However, if the people of the chief tower were to join forces, they would definitely be in trouble. As long as you're fine. The black-clothed old man smiled. How did you escape? How did you find us? The mysterious lady asked. If I want to leave, they can't stop me. The black-clothed old man smiled confidently and then said, As for your whereabouts, Rushwang told me. The mysterious lady said, Then where is Rushwang now? She's safe now. Don't worry. When we get the divine crystals, we'll rush over to meet her. But now my identity has been exposed. I can no longer grasp the whereabouts of the people of the chief tower." The black-clothed old man sighed. "It doesn't matter, as long as we get the divine crystals." The mysterious lady smiled and turned to Qin Feiyang, saying, "Can you give me the divine crystals now?" "Where are Yen Wei's clansmen?" Qin Feiyang took a few steps back and looked at the mysterious lady warily. The mysterious lady said, "Don't be so nervous. I won't hurt you. Yen Wei's clansmen are also very safe." Qin Feiyang sneered, "I won't believe your nonsense. When I see Yen Wei's clansmen, I'll give you the divine crystals." "You brat!" The mysterious lady shook her head helplessly, seeing that the mysterious lady had no intention of hurting him and Wolf King. Qin Feiyang was secretly relieved. He looked at the black-clothed old man and asked, "Who are you?" "We've met before." The black-clothed old man smiled. "Met before?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. The black-clothed old man took off his mask, revealing an old face. There was a scar above his left eye. "It's you." Qin Feiyang was greatly surprised. He would never forget this familiar face in front of him for the rest of his life, because this was the old man who secretly helped him in the land of inheritance. "Very surprised, right?" The old man smiled. Qin Feiyang nodded. He never would have thought that this old man was also on the mysterious lady's side. No wonder he secretly helped him back then. At this time, the mysterious lady looked at the old man and said, "Send a message to Rushwang and ask her to come and meet us. Then we'll take Qin Feiyang to see Yen Wei's clansmen." The old man nodded and took out the image crystal. Boom! However, at this time, several terrifying auras descended above them. The few of them were startled and hurriedly looked up. How is this possible? The black-clothed old man, the mysterious lady, and the middle-aged man suddenly changed their expressions. Because the people who suddenly appeared were Mu Qing's group of 4, as well as the Chief Pagoda Master's group of 4. Qin Feiyang sent a sound transmission. "I forgot to tell you, Mu Qing has activated a battle soul called Heavenly Eye. She can find our location anytime, anywhere." What? The 3 of them were dumbfounded. "Now that we have 4 false gods, let's see how you can escape this time." The Mu clan's great ancestor sneered. Boom! For divine auras erupted. Yigleo and the other 3 false gods descended from the sky and charged towards Qin Feiyang's group. "Qin Feiyang will hold them back. Hurry up and leave. Send a message to Rushwang and tell her to leave as well," the black-clothed old man roared. Then, the 3 of them looked at each other and charged towards Yigleo's group of 4 with surging divine auras. "Rushwang?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked, "Who is Rushwang?" The black-clothed old man shouted without turning his head, "It's the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion that you guys are talking about. Hurry up and leave." "So it's her." Qin Feiyang muttered and immediately opened the teleportation gate. "You want to leave?" "No way." Yigleo's eyes flashed with a cold light as he turned in the air and charged towards Qin Feiyang. "Your opponent is us." The mysterious lady's face was gloomy as she led the black-clothed old man and the middle-aged man in front of Yigleo. "Humph! Do you think we don't exist?" The white-robed old man snorted coldly as his figure flashed and quickly blocked in front of the middle-aged man. The 2 false gods of the chief pagoda also blocked the mysterious lady and the black-clothed old man. "It's not the same as before. Just now you guys outnumbered us, so we had no choice but to retreat. And now we have 4 false gods, and you only have 3 false gods. How are you going to fight us?" Yigleo laughed disdainfully, bypassed the mysterious lady and the other 2, and continued to charge towards Qin Feiyang and Wolf King. His eyes filled with killing intent. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Now, The mysterious lady and the other two were busy and could only rely on himself. With a wave of his hand, he sent Wolf King to the ancient castle and then entered the teleportation gate. Naive! Yigleo's face was full of ridicule as he raised his old hand and waved it in the air. An invisible divine power roared out like lightning and shattered the teleportation gate on the spot. Qin Feiyang, who had just entered the teleportation gate, staggered and fell out again, and under that divine power, his whole body was dripping with blood. What should I do? At the critical moment of life and death, Qin Feiyang not only did not panic, but was also unprecedentedly calm. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Suddenly, Chapter 11:24. What? In the sky, the chief pagoda master and Wang Su trembled. The two old men also immediately stopped and looked at Yigleo and the others. Good chance. Seeing the two of them stop, the eyes of the mysterious lady and the old man in black lit up, and they immediately charged at Yigleo fiercely. Facing the sudden attack of two false gods, Yigleo did not dare to be careless. He had to stop and face the mysterious lady and the old man seriously. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Mu Qing sarcastically. He then opened the portal again and walked in without looking back. Bastard! Looking unhelplessly as Qin Feiyang slipped away from under her nose, Mu Qing was so angry that she was about to go crazy. She looked at the chief pagoda master and the other three and roared, "He's sowing dissension! You've all been tricked!" Sow discord? The chief pagoda master and the others were slightly stunned and immediately looked down at Qin Feiyang. However, there was no trace of Qin Feiyang below. Even the portal was about to dissipate. Damn it! The four of them were annoyed. The Mu family's ancestor urged, "Quickly use your omniscient eye and see where he went. Kill him." The mysterious lady looked up at Mu Qing with murderous intent in her eyes. Okay, the old man in black nodded. As long as Mu Qing was there, no matter where Qin Feiyang escaped, he would be found in the end. So they had to find a way to get rid of this boy. Whoosh! The two of them turned into a stream of light and went straight to Mu Qing. Don't even think about it. Yigleo also instantly saw through their purpose. With a violent roar, he chased after the two of them. The two false gods of the chief pagoda also came back to their senses and immediately stepped forward to stop the mysterious lady and the old man in black. What should we do now? The old man in black secretly said, extremely anxious. The mysterious lady sighed and said, "There's no other way. We can only let Qin Feiyang fend for himself." Rumble. Crack. A battle between quasi-divinities could easily destroy the world. In just an instant, this place was shattered into pieces. It was a scene of devastation, and the ferocious beasts fled in all directions. A moment later, Mu Qing's eyes lit up. She opened the teleportation gate and shouted, "I found him. Come with me." Mu Jia's great ancestor, Chief Pagoda Master, and Wang Su immediately rushed towards the transmission gate. If they stayed here, they wouldn't be of any help. They might as well chase after Qin Feiyang. Most importantly, the Mu Jia wants to take the divine crystal for themselves. The main tower was also guarding against them. Therefore, they would never allow anyone to pursue Qin Feiyang alone. In the meantime, Yigleo's eyes flickered as he scanned the crowd. Now, the mysterious madam, the black-robed old man, and the middle-aged man were all busy dealing with the white-robed old man and the two false divinities from the main tower. It seemed like there was no need for him to do anything. Shwa! Suddenly, he turned into a streak of light and also flew towards the teleportation gate. As long as he followed, the divine crystal would definitely become his Mu Jia's, because right now, only the Chief Pagoda Master and Wang Su were following him. Both of them were only 9-star were emperors. They simply didn't have the ability to snatch the divine crystal from him. "You can't go," But just as he was about to enter the teleportation gate, the two false divinities from the main tower left the mysterious madam and the black-robed old man at the same time and blocked in front of the teleportation gate. What do you mean? Yigleo raised his eyebrows. There are some things that we have to guard against. One of the old men said. Yigleo's face sank slightly. Obviously, the people from the main tower were guarding against his Mujia. The white-robed old man pushed the middle-aged man away with a palm. He raised his head and looked at the two old men. He looked at Yigleo and said, "Stay here and deal with the three of them with us. Today, no matter what, we must take them down." Take us down? Are you kidding? The middle-aged man, the mysterious madam, and the black-robed old man also took the opportunity to gather together and sneered. Then let's try. Yigleo immediately turned around and rushed toward the three of them. The two false divinities from the main tower and the white-robed old man also attacked the three of them. Divine might spread in all directions. An earth-shattering battle had truly begun. In the sky above a forest, Qin Feiyang held the image crystal in his hand and stood against the wind. In the void in front of him stood a beautiful shadow. It was the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Under normal circumstances, my teacher would never let me go alone. What happened? At this moment, she looked at Qin Feiyang with a face full of uneasiness. The situation is urgent. I can't explain it clearly now. In short, you should leave first. After they escape, they will look for you. Qin Feiyang said. Then where are you going now? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion asked. I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. No matter where he escaped to, Mu Qing would be able to find him. So now, there was no place for him to hide in the forgotten continent. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said, Then come to our place. We'll think of a way together. Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house had the cultivation of an 8-star combat emperor. If he was with her, at least in terms of safety, he would be a little safer. Quickly give me the coordinates, Qin Feiyang said. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house immediately gave the coordinates to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang also immediately opened the teleportation gate and rushed in. Not long after Qin Feiyang left, Mu Qing and the others descended in the sky above the forest. Scanning the empty void, Mu Qing said in a deep voice, We're late. Wang Su said, He knows that you can predict his location, so he definitely won't stay in one place for too long. Looks like this will become a protracted battle. No matter where he goes, I will capture him today. Mu Qing clenched her hands, and a strange light appeared in her eyes. At the same time, outside the divine city, in a dense forest, Qin Feiyang and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house stood opposite each other. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said, Quickly tell me, what kind of trouble did teacher and the others encounter? But Qin Feiyang lowered his head and turned a deaf ear. There was only one thought in his mind. How could he escape Mu Qing's pursuit? Right. Where can I go? Qin Feiyang suddenly slapped his forehead and quickly opened a teleportation gate. Where are we going? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house looked at him suspiciously. Just follow me. Qin Feiyang grabbed her wrist and entered the teleportation gate. Swish! Just as the two of them left, Mu Qing brought the chief pagoda master and the others to this place. We're late again. The Mu family's ancestor scanned the surrounding forest, his eyes extremely sinister. The chief pagoda master looked at Mu Qing and said, Can you do it or not? Don't you know how to sense it carefully? Mu Qing looked at him coldly and ignored the chief pagoda master. The strange light in her eyes became brighter and brighter. Sense it carefully? The chief pagoda master raised his eyebrows and sensed carefully. As expected, he sensed the aura left behind by Qin Feiyang in the air. He actually went there. Suddenly, Mu Qing's body trembled as she exclaimed, Where? The few of them looked at him in surprise. Mu Qing didn't say a word and immediately opened the teleportation gate. The group of people rushed in like lightning. Qinghai. Qin Feiyang brought the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house and descended on the island. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house scanned the island and frowned. Isn't this the Qinghai Island? What are we doing here? You know it too, but now is not the time to talk nonsense. You're fast. Bring me to the inner sea immediately. Qin Feiyang said. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house looked at him suspiciously. With a wave of her jade-like hand, she rolled up Qin Feiyang and rushed towards the inner sea. Swish! However, in less than 3 breaths, Mu Qing and her group appeared. Look, he's in front. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house is also with him. Wang Su immediately discovered Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Chase! The chief pagoda master and the great ancestor of the Mu clan broke through the air almost at the same time and chased after Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Their speed was as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, they had closed a large distance. Damn it, they actually caught up so quickly. Qin Feiyang's face was gloomy. We used the teleportation gate to teleport here. How did they know we were here? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house was also shocked. How could Qin Feiyang have the time to explain now? One must know. The chief pagoda master and Wang Su, as well as the great ancestor of the Mu clan, were all 9-star combat emperors, although the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house was only a small realm lower than them. The difference in speed was like heaven and earth. If he didn't think of a way, he was afraid that he would be caught by them before entering the inland sea. And even if he entered the inland sea, it was only a matter of time before he was chased by them. And now he couldn't go to the castle, because the chief pagoda and the Mu clan had joined forces. The mysterious lady and the other 2 were probably unable to protect themselves now. Once they entered the castle, they would definitely be trapped inside. Mu Qing proudly said, Qin Feiyang, you are now at the end of the road. Give up struggling. Qin Feiyang glanced at Mu Qing and shouted, Chief Pagoda Master, Elder Wang, you have really been used by the Mu clan. Still want to sow discord? The Mu clan laughed disdainfully. Qin Feiyang sneered and said, You know in your heart whether you are trying to sow discord or not. Chief Pagoda Master, Elder Wang, you still don't know Mu Qing's other identity. Qin Dai. Shut up. The chief pagoda master shouted angrily and waved his hand in the air. Battle Qi surged out like a torrent and turned into a huge wave, drowning the sky and pouncing towards Qin Feiyang. It wasn't that he didn't believe what Qin Feiyang said, but he didn't want to be distracted by other things now. You can't escape. I will hold them back. Hurry up and leave. You must protect the divine crystal. Feeling the billowing battle Qi behind her, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion's eyes darkened. She secretly said something to Qin Feiyang and turned around to slap the air. Battle Qi surged out from her palm. Boom! The 2 battle Qi collided with a loud bang, and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body was on the verge of collapse, and her cheeks, under the veil, were even paler. Are you all right? Qin Feiyang hurriedly supported her and asked with concern. He thought that it would be safer to be with this woman, but he didn't expect that he would implicate her instead. I can still hold on for a while. Hurry up and leave. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion pushed him back with a palm. Qin Feiyang sighed and said, Don't joke around. The chief pagoda master has mastered a divine art. You are not his match at all. Originally, he came here to enter the internal sea. Although Mu Qing could predict his location in the internal sea, she couldn't open a teleportation gate in the internal sea after all. As long as he made good use of this point, he might be able to find a chance of survival. But he never expected that these people would come so quickly and not give him a chance at all. Even if I am not his match, I can only take a gamble now. Perhaps the heavens will pity me and let me fight for a glimmer of hope for you. Chapter 11:25. The heavens have mercy! Qin Feiyang looked at the sky. If the heavens truly had a heart of compassion, then there wouldn't be so much suffering in this world. So, it was better to rely on himself than to beg the heavens for mercy. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, saying, "I won't leave you behind and escape alone." Letting a woman cover his retreat was something he couldn't do. Moreover, even if he left the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion behind, he wouldn't be able to escape, because now not only was there the chief pagoda master, there was also Wang Su and the Mu family's great ancestor. Even if the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion could stop the chief pagoda master, she wouldn't be able to stop Wang Su and the other two. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion looked at him in surprise and said with a bitter smile, "Are you really not afraid of death?" "Who isn't afraid of death? But even if I die, I have to die with dignity. Let's go. As long as we enter the inner sea, I'll be able to find a chance to escape," Qin Feiyang said. In the blink of an eye, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion looked at him deeply. With a light wave of her jade-like hand, she swept up Qin Feiyang and turned around to continue towards the inner sea. "Still not giving up?" The chief pagoda master sneered. He pointed his index finger in the air, and another wave of battle chi surged out. Like a torrent, it pounced towards Qin Feiyang and the young lady. "Don't fight," Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, at the same time activating the battle character art. "Understood." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded and struck out with her palm. Billowing battle chi roared out. Boom! The two waves of battle chi met once again, and a destructive wave of air surged in all directions. Puff! The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion trembled as blood gushed out of her mouth. Qin Feiyang, who was beside her, was also struck by the wave of air. In an instant, his body was badly mutilated as purple gold dragon blood dyed the air. Fortunately, he had activated the battle character art in advance. Otherwise, he would have already lost his life. Qin Feiyang endured the pain and dizziness as he continued to flee towards the inner sea with the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Very soon, a lake entered their line of sight. Qin Feiyang was no stranger to this lake. It was the lake where the mermaid pattern was hidden. Moreover, just like before, as long as he came here, the feeling of intimacy in his heart would be incomparably strong. But this time, Qin Feiyang did not stop. He only glanced at the lake and then flew over it. Drip! He was bleeding profusely. Drops of purple gold dragon blood dripped into the lake, dyeing the surface of the lake a purple gold color. It was also at this moment that an unexpected change occurred. Gurgle, gurgle. The water in the entire lake began to boil like boiling water. The chief pagoda master and the others had just flown above the lake. When they saw this scene, they were all extremely bewildered. Mu Qing shouted, "Don't worry about that. Capture Qin Feiyang quickly. We can't let him enter the inland sea." However, before he could finish speaking, a vast and boundless energy suddenly rushed out from the lake, setting off giant waves that were more than 10 meters high. Chief Pagoda Master and the others immediately slammed on the brakes and stopped above the lake. Qin Feiyang and Yi Zichen sensed the commotion behind them. They stopped in midair and turned around to look. What's going on? When they saw the abnormality in the lake, a trace of bewilderment appeared between their brows. Look, golden light is emerging from the bottom of the lake. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion narrowed her eyes and exclaimed, "Golden light?" Qin Feiyang focused his gaze. Indeed, he saw a golden light rising rapidly from the bottom of the lake. Boom! Splash! In the blink of an eye, the golden light rushed out of the lake and appeared above the divine island. How is this possible? Qin Feiyang also raised his head and looked at the sky. His face was instantly filled with disbelief. The golden light was dazzling and dazzling like a scorching sun, and within that golden light there was actually a person standing. That person's face was blurry and could not be seen clearly. However, his body was quite burly. From this, one could tell that he was a relatively strong man. However, his height was different from ordinary people. He was more than 3 meters tall. In his hand, he held a golden harpoon that was 5 to 6 meters long. It looked as if it was cast from gold and emitted a dazzling divine light. However, the most eye-catching thing was that on his back, there was actually a pair of golden wings. Moreover, his lower body did not have legs. It was a golden fishtail. He stood high in the sky, holding the golden trident in his hand. He was like a god that had descended to the world, and his entire body was emitting a great pressure. At this moment, whether it was the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion or the chief pagoda master, they could not help but have the urge to worship him. "Why are you here?" Suddenly, a cry of alarm exploded. It was the voice of the chief pagoda master. And Qin Feiyang hurriedly looked at the chief pagoda master and found that the chief pagoda master was looking at the golden figure with a face full of fear. He then looked at Wang Su and the Mu clan's great ancestor and found that their faces were also filled with fear. What's going on? Qin Feiyang's mind was muddled. However, facing the chief pagoda master's question, the golden figure seemed to have not heard it and did not say a word. However, Qin Feiyang had an illusion that the golden figure was staring at him. Qin Feiyang swallowed his saliva and asked tentatively, "Senior, who are you? Why do you make this junior feel so familiar?" The moment this golden figure appeared, the inexplicable sense of familiarity in his heart immediately reached an unprecedented level. It felt like this person was his relative. However, the golden figure still did not say a word, like a statue. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion sized up the golden figure and suddenly seemed to have thought of something. Her eyes trembled slightly as she shouted, "Let's go!" And Qin Feiyang was stunned. But before he could regain his senses, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion brought him and rushed towards the inner sea without looking back. "Chase!" Mu Qing's expression changed as she shouted. The chief pagoda master and the Mu clan's great ancestor quivered and immediately chased after the two of them. However, in the void in front of them, a golden light screen suddenly appeared, blocking the path of the chief pagoda master and the other two. And as soon as this golden light screen appeared, with the lake as the center, it quickly spread to the ends of the island on both sides. From afar, it looked like a golden wall between Qin Feiyang and the chief pagoda master and the others. Seeing this, Mu Qing and Wang Su were stunned. The chief pagoda master and the Mu clan's great ancestor took a few steps back and looked at the golden light screen in front of them with a blank expression. Qin Feiyang also saw this scene and said in surprise, "He's not protecting us, is he?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion looked back at the golden figure and shook her head. "He's not protecting us, he's protecting you." "Protecting me?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "When we're out of danger, I'll explain it to you slowly." After the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion finished speaking, she took Qin Feiyang and rushed straight into the inner sea, gradually disappearing into the violent winds and huge waves. On the island, damn it, Mu Qing was so angry that he stomped his feet. He was about to catch Qin Feiyang, but in the end, he could only watch the two enter the inner sea. How could he not be angry? The chief pagoda master, the Mu clan's great ancestor, and Wang Su were also burning with anxiety. They all knew the situation in the inner sea. They couldn't open the portal. Once Qin Feiyang ran far away. With Qin Feiyang's cautious personality, even if Mu Qing could use the all-seeing eye to predict Qin Feiyang's location, it would be difficult to catch him. Mu Qing looked at the few of them and said in a deep voice, "In the inner sea, My all-seeing, I can't predict his exact location. What? The three of them suddenly changed color. Can't predict. Isn't this adding insult to injury? Mu Qing said, "This is why I asked you to stop them from entering the inner sea." Why can't you predict? Wang Su asked. Mu Qing shook his head and said, "I don't know, but according to my guess, it should be related to the mysterious power that sealed the inner sea. Of course, it also has something to do with my cultivation. My current cultivation is too weak." Mysterious power. The three of them scanned the inner sea and couldn't help but frown. Suddenly, the chief pagoda master turned to look at Mu Qing and said, "Wait, just now you said that you can't predict Qin Feiyang's exact location. That is to say, you can still predict his approximate location?" "Yes, I can predict his approximate location. But what's the use of that?" Mu Qing asked back. The chief pagoda master fell silent. Even if they could predict Qin Feiyang's exact location, it would be difficult to catch him, let alone just a rough location. What should they do now? The chief pagoda master, the Mu clan's great ancestor, and Wang Su, these three giants of the Forgotten Continent, were at a loss at this moment. Looking at the three's performance, Mu Qing's heart was filled with anger. He pointed at the golden figure in the sky and roared, "What else can we do? Of course, we have to find a way to get rid of him quickly." The Mu clan's great ancestor's spirit was lifted. Yes, as long as we get rid of him now, we still have a chance to catch up with Qin Feiyang. Get rid of him? The chief pagoda master and Wang Su looked up at the golden figure, and the fear on their faces couldn't dissipate. "Let's see if we can break that golden light curtain first," the Mu clan's great ancestor shouted. Boom! After that, he took a step forward, and his battle chi surged, and he punched the golden light curtain with all his strength. However, this punch felt like it hit a sponge, and it didn't have the slightest effect. He actually didn't fight back. At the same time, looking at the golden figure, the chief pagoda master and Wang Su's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. Immediately, the two stepped forward and landed beside the Mu clan's great ancestor. The three looked at each other, and the emperor's aura erupted, evolving into a supreme battle art, and jointly bombarded the golden light curtain. But it still didn't help. The golden light curtain only trembled a few times and then calmed down. Still not fighting back? Seeing that the golden figure above was still indifferent, the chief pagoda master looked stunned. Is he not a real person? The Mu clan's great ancestor carefully looked at the golden figure for a while, and his spirit was lifted. I understand this should be just a wisp of his divine sense. Formed by divine sense? The chief pagoda master and Wang Su were taken aback, and then they were also excited. If he's not a real person, what are we afraid of? Smash him! The chief pagoda master roared. Boom! The three frantically attacked. Battle arts, battle souls, divine weapons, they all came out. However, the result was that not only did they not smash the golden figure, but they were also exhausted and panting like oxen, sweating profusely. I don't believe that I can't even deal with a wisp of your divine sense. The chief pagoda master roared, his hands constantly waved, and a surge of divine power rolled out. Obviously, he used a divine art, but even the divine art still couldn't cause the slightest damage to the golden figure. How can he be so strong soon? Chapter 11:26 Inland Sea. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house brought Qin Feiyang as fast as lightning above the sea. I wonder if they have caught up. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at the sea behind him and muttered to himself. His face was still full of worry. I don't think so. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house shook her head. Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked in confusion, Why do you think so? That golden figure is very powerful. With the ability of the Chief Tower Master and the others, they can't break through a seal. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said, "Golden figure, why is he on the island?" Qin Feiyang muttered. Although he couldn't see the golden figure's face clearly, whether it was his figure or the harpoon in his hand, they were exactly the same as the Mermaid Emperor statue that was enshrined in the Holy Land of the Mermaid clan. It was because of this that he was so shocked when he saw the golden figure, because he was sure that it should be the Mermaid Emperor who had left with his ancestor back then. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said, "His existence is related to an ancient legend." "You know him too?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Of course I know. Not only do I know the current rulers of the Forgotten Continent, such as the Chief Tower Master, Wang Su, the Mu clan's ancestor, the various fake gods, and the ancestors of the various super tribes also know. He is the emperor of the Mermaid clan, the strongest general under your ancestor," the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. As expected, Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. No wonder the Chief Tower Master and the others had such a terrified expression when they saw the Mermaid Emperor. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said, "However, the Mermaid Emperor that appeared just now was not a real person." "Not a real person?" Qin Feiyang was shocked. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house nodded and said, "Yes, if I'm not wrong, he is a wisp of divine sense left behind by the Mermaid Emperor back then." "What? A wisp of divine sense?" "Divine sense can transform into a human form." Qin Feiyang was shocked. Of course, the divine sense of a false god can't transform into a human form. However, a true war god's divine sense has great power. Perhaps to you, a false god is already the most powerful existence in this world. But let me tell you, a true god of war only needs a strand of divine, thought to kill a false god. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. Qin Feiyang's face was blank and his head was rumbling. The gap between a false god and a war god was actually this big. Qin Feiyang asked, "Are you saying that the Mermaid Emperor is a true god of war?" "Yes." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion nodded. Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. If the Mermaid Emperor was a god of war, then how powerful was the ancestor back then? As if she could see the doubt in Qin Feiyang's heart, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion looked at the horizon and said in a low voice, "Your ancestor was extremely powerful. In that era, no matter if it was the Great Qin Empire or the Forgotten Continent, no one could compete with him." He had heard of it. Qin Feiyang could not help but think about it. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked into the eyes of the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion. He did not know if it was an illusion or not, but in the eyes of the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion, he actually found a trace of unresolvable sadness. Just as he was feeling suspicious, he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression froze, saying, "That's not right. Since that strand of divine sense can even kill a false god, then why didn't it directly kill the Chief Tower Master and the others, and only stop them?" The divine sense carries the will of its master. The reason why the Mermaid Emperor left this strand of divine sense behind was to protect the Forgotten Continent, so he will not harm anyone. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion said, "Protect the Forgotten Continent? What's going on?" Qin Feiyang did not understand. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion said, "This is related to the legend that I mentioned to you just now. Legend has it that a long time ago a divine beast was born here. Why does this legend sound so familiar?" Just as the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion started to explain, Qin Feiyang's expression became startled. Suddenly, he thought of it. "You can't be talking about this legend, right? That divine beast was very ambitious and wanted to rule this continent. In the end, a mysterious expert appeared and fought a bloody battle with it for 3 days and 3 nights before finally subduing it?" Qin Feiyang interrupted the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion and asked. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was startled and asked suspiciously, "How do you know?" "It really is this legend." Qin Feiyang laughed helplessly and said, "The last time I came to Qinghai, I heard it from a friend." This friend was naturally worth Wang Zicheng. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded her head in realization and asked, "Then, do you think this legend is true?" Qin Feiyang thought for a moment and said, "At that time I was skeptical, but now that I heard you say the same, I firmly believe it. There's nothing to doubt because this is true. It's just that the battle back then was not as exaggerated as the rumors. After all, there aren't many who truly know the truth. The rest of the people only heard rumors, and then the more they spread, the more exaggerated they became." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion laughed. "Then what's the situation?" Qin Feiyang asked. "That divine beast indeed wants to rule this continent, but there's no bloody battle for 3 days and 3 nights. That mysterious expert only used one move to defeat it, and he didn't subdue it either." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "He didn't subdue it? You're saying that the mysterious expert directly killed it?" Qin Feiyang said, "He didn't kill it either. That mysterious expert is a very benevolent person. He only sealed the divine beast's cultivation, making it stay at the false god realm forever." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "Seal?" Qin Feiyang was startled and said, "Then what about now? Is that divine beast still in the inner sea?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "It's not in the inner sea, it's in the endless sea." "Endless sea?" "I heard people talk about the endless sea, saying that there's a divine beast in the endless sea. Could it be him?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "That's right, it's him." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization, then looked at her suspiciously. "These should be secrets. But how do you know so clearly?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion laughed. "Compared to this, don't you want to know who that mysterious expert is?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. After thinking carefully about the cause and effect, he said in surprise, "It can't be the Mermaid Emperor, right?" "Yes and no. Because the Mermaid Emperor was indeed present at that time, but he didn't make a move. The person who really made a move was your ancestor." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "What?" Qin Feiyang's body trembled. That mysterious expert was actually his ancestor? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "Your ancestor saved the forgotten continent. In order to show his respect, the people of the main tower enshrined his statue in the land of inheritance." "I see," Qin Feiyang muttered. The doubts in his heart were finally solved. "And the great kindness that Gong Sunbei mentioned at that time should be this matter," the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion continued. "But because of some reasons the main tower master hates your ancestor very much." "What reason?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head and said, "This matter I have no comment for now." Qin Feiyang said, "Then back to the previous topic, how do you know so much? Did your teacher and the mysterious madam tell you?" No comment. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel annoyed. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion glanced at him and said with a faint smile, "Instead of thinking about these unimportant questions, why don't you think about how to deal with the Mu family's revenge?" At the mention of the Mu family, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel irritated. "Although you haven't personally killed anyone from the Mu family, whether it's the demon child and the butler or Lu Xingfeng and the Mu family's second ancestor, they all died because of you. Especially this time, if you don't give them the divine crystals, you've completely angered them. I'm afraid they really won't let this go." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said. Qin Feiyang coldly snorted. "It doesn't matter. We'll deal with it when the time comes." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head. In the face of such a grim situation, this child could still act so relaxed. How did he train his state of mind? Following that, a trace of worry crept up in her eyes as she said, "Now tell me, what kind of trouble did Mother and the others encounter?" Qin Feiyang nodded and immediately explained in detail what happened after they escaped from the Divine City. Time passed in a flash. The next day, early morning, the two of them stopped above an island. After traveling for a day and a night, even if the main Tower Master and the others have already entered the inner sea, they won't be able to catch up to us for a while. Let's stop and rest for a while. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion scanned the island and said, "All right." Qin Feiyang nodded. The two of them entered the island and landed on a mountain peak. There were many holy beasts on the island, but when they sensed the aura emitted by the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, they did not dare to approach. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion immediately took out an image crystal. Although she did not say it, Qin Feiyang could guess that she was definitely sending a message to the mysterious lady and the other two. However, the mysterious lady and the other two did not respond to her for a long time. The worry in the young lady's eyes grew even stronger. Qin Feiyang did not know how to comfort her, so he walked to the side and also took out an image crystal. Buzz! Not long later, Wang Zicheng's shadow appeared. "Greetings, young master." He looked at Qin Feiyang and unwillingly bowed. "How have you been?" Qin Feiyang asked. Wang Zicheng said, "Not bad. What about you?" Qin Feiyang laughed bitterly. "I'm on the run." "On the run?" Wang Zicheng raised his eyebrows and asked, "What's going on?" Qin Feiyang said, "I stole the chief pagoda master's things and am currently being chased by 4 fake gods." "What? Being chased by fake gods?" Wang Zicheng was flabbergasted. This guy was too good at causing trouble, right? He said, "Then where are you now? Do you need our help?" "I'm in the inner sea right now. As for helping, forget it. With your little strength, it's not enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. You guys are still the same as before, staying in Qinghai and pretending not to know me." Qin Feiyang said. Wang Zicheng frowned. "Since that's the case, why are you sending me a message now?" Qin Feiyang said, "I'm just telling you guys in advance that I might leave the Forgotten Continent for a period of time." "Where are you going?" Wang Zicheng asked. "I haven't thought about it yet, but regardless of whether I leave or not, you guys have to be careful during this period of time." Qin Feiyang said. Wang Zicheng nodded. "I understand. I'll tell the Black Monkey and the others later." Chapter 11:27. Nope. The young lady shook her head. "Don't worry. Although the Mu family and the main pagoda have joined hands, your teacher and the others are all quite strong. Even if they are not their opponents, escaping is definitely not a problem." Qin Feiyang laughed. "I hope so." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion sighed and was about to put away the image crystal. Buzz! Suddenly, the image crystal shone brightly. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion perked up and immediately activated the image crystal. Buzz! An illusory figure quickly appeared. It was the mysterious lady, but at this moment, the mysterious lady was in a sorry state. Her entire body was covered in blood, and one of her arms was missing. The middle-aged man was also standing beside her. He was also covered in wounds, and his face was as pale as paper. Obviously, both of them were severely injured. Seeing this, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion immediately became anxious and asked, "Are you guys all right?" "I won't die." The middle-aged man grinned. Qin Feiyang walked to the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, sized up the bloodstains on their bodies, and asked, "Did you guys just end the battle?" The mysterious lady said, It's not that we just ended the battle, we just escaped. In that case, you guys fought for an entire day and night? Qin Feiyang said in shock. Yes. The mysterious lady nodded. Amazing. Qin Feiyang was secretly speechless. This was the first time he had heard of a bloody battle that lasted for an entire day and night. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion looked at the mysterious lady and the middle-aged man and asked, "Where's teacher? Why don't I see him?" The mysterious lady wanted to say something, but hesitated, her face extremely gloomy. Seeing this, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's eyelids twitched, and she asked nervously, "Where exactly is teacher?" The mysterious lady sighed. In order to help us escape, he stayed behind by himself and was taken away by the people from the main pagoda. What? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's face turned ashen. Don't worry, we followed them to take a look. They didn't kill your teacher, but imprisoned him in the main pagoda's prison. After we recover from our injuries, we will immediately think of a way to save him. The mysterious lady said in a deep voice. Not dead? The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's young mistress was stunned. Then she heaved a sigh of relief. As long as she did not die, there was still a chance. Where are you now? Madame Mystery asked. Inland Sea. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. The mysterious madam was stunned. She frowned and said, "Why did you go to the inland sea? If we can't open the teleportation gate in the internal sea, how are we going to find you?" Qin Feiyang said, "If we hadn't entered the inland sea, we would have died long ago. Damn it." The mysterious lady was incomparably furious. Alas, looks like we're in trouble. The main pagoda and the Mujia will definitely send people to guard the island. The Divine Island is the only entrance to the inner sea. If you want to come out now, I'm afraid it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The middle-aged man sighed. Only one entrance. Qin Feiyang's expression changed, and he quickly said, "Didn't someone say that the end of the inland sea is connected to the endless sea?" It's true that it's connected to the endless ocean, but there's also a divine power enchantment at the border between the internal sea and the endless ocean. You two won't be able to break the enchantment at all. The middle-aged man said. Qin Feiyang said, "Doesn't that mean that the inland sea is an invisible cage?" "Yes, as long as the Divine Island is sealed. You're like a turtle in a jar." The middle-aged man nodded. "How could this be?" Qin Feiyang muttered, his face as pale as paper. He thought that he could find a way out after entering the inland sea, but he never expected that it would be a dead end. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house was also at a loss for a moment. "Don't panic. You guys find a place to hide first. We'll sneak into the Divine Island to investigate the situation, and then we'll think of a way," the mysterious lady said. "Okay." The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house nodded. "No matter what, you must save your lives." The mysterious lady reminded again, and the shadow dissipated. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house put away the image crystal, turned to look at Qin Feiyang, and asked, "Where are we going next?" Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. Suddenly, he thought of a place, looked up at the miss of the Dragon Phoenix house, and said, "I know a place. If we really reach a dead end, we can enter there." "What place?" the miss of the Dragon Phoenix house asked. "Devil's Island." Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. The Devil's Island was a dangerous place in the inland sea. Once he entered, he would most likely die. Therefore, unless he had no other choice, he would not easily step into the Devil's Island. Whoosh! Without further ado, the two of them immediately soared into the sky, turned into a ray of light, and rushed towards the depths of the inland sea. With the miss of the Dragon Phoenix house, an 8-star combat emperor, there was no need to worry about their safety on the way. Divine Island. A day and a night passed. The golden figure and the golden light screen were still there. Mu Qing and the others stood in front of the light screen, helpless. Swish, Suddenly, the void distorted, and 4 figures descended above the divine island. And Mu Qing and the others sensed the 4 auras and hurriedly raised their heads to look. A trace of joy immediately appeared on their faces, because the newcomers were Yiglao, the white-robed old man, and the 2 false gods from the main pagoda. Although 4 against 3 gave them an absolute advantage and captured the black-robed old man, they were all injured to varying degrees. At the same time, the 4 of them appeared above the divine island. When they saw the golden figure, their pupils suddenly shrank. The main pagoda master asked, "Did you take them down?" The mysterious woman and the middle-aged man escaped. "However, we captured Yi Shu and locked him in prison. When we get the divine crystal back, we will interrogate him properly." The 2 false gods from the main pagoda said, "As long as we can capture one of them." The main pagoda master muttered, then cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your hard work." The 2 nodded. One of them pointed at the Mermaid Emperor and said in a deep voice, "What's the matter with him?" The main pagoda master said, "Don't worry, he's just a strand of the Mermaid Emperor's divine sense." Divine sense? The 4 false gods' bodies trembled. Yiglao said, "I didn't expect him to leave a strand of his divine sense here. Then he's protecting Qin Feiyang now?" "Yes. Yesterday we chased him here and were about to capture Qin Feiyang, but he suddenly appeared and stopped us. Now, we don't know where Qin Feiyang has escaped to." The main pagoda master nodded, his face full of worry. "Don't worry. The inner sea is a cage. Once they enter, they can forget about coming out." One of the old men smiled coldly, then turned to Yiglao and the other 2 and said, "Now let's work together and see if we can destroy this strand of divine sense." The 3 of them nodded. The main pagoda master and the others immediately retreated. Boom! Yiglao and the other 3 faced the Mermaid Emperor. They raised their arms at the same time, and a shocking divine might rushed out of their bodies. All of a sudden, the power of 4 false gods appeared like 4 dragons, roaring toward the Mermaid Emperor. Boom! Accompanied by an earth-shattering sound, the 4 false gods power blasted on the Mermaid Emperor's body almost at the same time. At this moment, the entire deity's island trembled, as if it was about to collapse. Whether it was the outer sea or the inner sea, huge waves were set off. However, when the dust settled, the Mermaid Emperor formed by divine sense was still unscathed. It's just a strand of divine sense, but it's so strong. Yiglao and the other 3 were stunned. In their hearts, they couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. The old man in white sighed. "It seems that it's impossible to break it by force. We can only wait for it to disappear." "Then let's wait," Yiglao said in a deep voice, then turned to the Mu clan's great ancestor and said, "I don't know when this will disappear. Let Qing stay here. You go back first." "Yes." The Mu clan's great ancestor replied respectfully, then opened the portal and left. "You guys go back too. Now that the central divine kingdom is in a mess, we must suppress it as soon as possible." The 2 false gods of the main pagoda also looked at the main pagoda master and Wang Modeo. The 2 nodded, opened the portal, and left. In this way, only the 4 false gods and Mu Qing were left. At the same time, at the edge of the deity's island, the mysterious lady and the middle-aged man stood on top of a mountain, restrained their aura, and looked at Mu Qing and the others from afar. A moment later, the mysterious lady retracted her gaze and said, "It seems that Qin Feiyang and Rushwang's lives won't be in danger for the time being." "Yes." The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Why don't we take the opportunity to enter the deity's city and rescue Yi Shu? Those 2 things are here, and the strongest person in the main pagoda is a 9-star combat emperor. It's indeed a good opportunity, but we can't get in because the cell where Yi Shu is imprisoned is not an ordinary cell. It can only be opened with a key, and there's only one key to open that cell, and it's with those two old things. The mysterious lady looked at the two false gods of the main pagoda, and her eyes flashed coldly. The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and said helplessly, "Fine. Anyway, you're more familiar with the main pagoda than I am. We'll do whatever you say. Let's recuperate first. We'll wait for an opportunity to act when we're better," the mysterious lady said. "Okay." The middle-aged man nodded. Then the two of them sat cross-legged on the ground and took out healing pills. They healed their injuries while monitoring the movements of Mu Qing and the others. Time was like sand between fingers. 5 days passed in a flash. Early in the morning, buzz! The golden light curtain in front of Mu Qing and the others suddenly disappeared, and the golden figure turned into a golden light and rushed into the lake below like lightning. The 5 of them were meditating. When they sensed the movement, they opened their eyes one after another, and their faces were filled with ecstasy. 5 days. Including the day before, it had been 6 days. The golden light curtain finally dissipated. Yiglao and the others immediately got up and rushed toward the inland sea with Mu Qing. Wait, Mu Qing suddenly stretched out his hand. What's wrong? The 4 of them stopped and turned to look at him suspiciously. Mu Qing said, "It's been 6 days, and the inland sea is bigger than I imagined. If we look for him like this, we won't be able to find him." Yiglao asked, "Do you have any good ideas?" "Although I can't find him right away, I can shorten the time." After Mu Qing finished speaking, a strange light appeared in her eyes. A vast ocean was faintly reflected in her pupils, and there were islands of various sizes on the surface of the ocean. Soon, the light in his eyes disappeared and he sneered. "I know where he is." "Where?" Chapter 11:28. Mu Qing said, "It's in the northwest of the inland sea. It should take more than 2 months to get there from here." So far, Yiglao and the other 3 frowned. "I'm guessing based on my cultivation. If it were you guys, it wouldn't take so long." Mu Qing said, "So that's how it is. It'll take you 2 months to get there. If it were us, it would take at most 2 or 3 days. Yiglao said, "For us now, 2 or 3 days is too long. Let's just teleport there directly." Mu Qing said, "Teleport?" The 2 false gods were stunned. Wasn't it impossible to open a portal in the inland sea? Mu Qing looked at the 2 of them and waved his hand. An ancient stone gate appeared. Looking at the stone gate, Yiglao's eyes lit up and said, "Yes, we can use the gate of time and space." The gate of time and space. The 2 false gods stared at the stone gate with a fiery light in their eyes. Obviously, they also knew the magical use of the gate of time and space. Suddenly, one of them frowned and said, "No, this is not the real gate of time and space." Mu Qing didn't explain. He directly handed the gate of time and space to Yiglao and gave Yiglao a coordinate. Yiglao waved his hand and the power of the false god surged. With a clang, the gate of time and space was instantly awakened. The old man in the white robe said, "Let's go. No matter what, we have to catch him today. Wait, I know Qin Feiyang. He's very good at hide and seek. So, we must leave someone to guard the island. Also, the mysterious lady won't sit back and do nothing. Someone guarding this place can stop her from entering the inland sea and rescuing Qin Feiyang." Mu Qing said. As soon as these words came out, Yiglao, the old man in the white robe, and the 2 false gods of the main tower all fell silent. Mu Qing's eyes flashed slightly. He looked at the 2 old men and said, "I know what you're thinking. Don't worry, the Mu family really doesn't covet the divine crystals." The 2 of them frowned. One of them said, "How about this, to avoid unnecessary suspicion? Each of us will leave 1 person to guard this place." "Sure." Mu Qing nodded. He turned to the white-robed old man and said, "Ancestor, The middle-aged man beside the mysterious madam is very strong. Only you can stop him, so I'll have to trouble you to stay and guard the place." "No problem." The white-robed old man nodded. The two people from the main pagoda looked at each other, and one of them said, "I'll stay." "You go." "Yes." The other person nodded. "Then let's go." Mu Qing waved his hand and took the lead to step into the gate of time and space. He looked like a leader. Yiglao and the person from the main pagoda also entered the gate of time and space. The next moment, Mu Qing and the other two arrived in the sky above a sea. This place was most likely over 10,000 kilometers away from the demonic island. To ordinary people, a distance of over 10,000 miles was an unreachable distance. But to false gods, it was just a matter of hours. Mu Qing glanced at the vast sea and looked at the person from the main pagoda. He said, "Senior, let's split up. You go to the northwest, and we'll go to the southwest. Once we find him, we'll send a signal immediately." "Okay." The old man nodded and turned to the northwest. Yiglao frowned and said, "Qing, didn't you just say that Qin Feiyang is in the northwest? Why did you let him go?" Mu Qing smiled and said, "Ancestor, I lied to them. In fact, Qin Feiyang is in the southwest." "Ah." Yiglao was stunned. Then he shook his head and smiled. "I didn't expect you to have a trick up your sleeve. Not bad, we didn't misjudge you. You will definitely be the pillar of the Mu family in the future." Mu Qing rubbed his head and smiled. "Let's go. Don't waste time." "Okay." Oldie nodded. Then he brought Mu Qing along as they headed towards the southwest direction. At the same time, he used his divine perception to search the sea region. He didn't even let go of the deep sea, and the Devil's Island was in the southwest. At the same time, in the sky above a sea, a man and a woman stood side by side, scanning the island in front of them with solemn expressions. On the island there were piles of bones. It was like hell. This man and woman were Qin Feiyang and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Back then, Wang Yu drove the Sage King ship. Whether it was from the God's Island to the Devil's Island or from the Devil's Island to the God's Island, it took an entire month. But now, under the lead of the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, Qin Feiyang only took 5 days to arrive at the Devil's Island. This speed could be said to be heaven and earth. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion sighed. "I didn't expect that there would be such a dangerous place hidden in the inner sea." "Have you never been to the inner sea?" Qin Feiyang asked. "No." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. She frowned and said, "Are we really going to enter this place?" Qin Feiyang said, "If we really reach a dead end, this place is undoubtedly the best place to escape. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been with you." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was rather regretful. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "It's too late to regret now. You've already boarded my pirate ship." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion rolled her eyes at him. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He turned to look at an island near the Devil's Island and said, "Let's go over there and rest." "Okay." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded. The 6 days of being on the run had indeed exhausted her. However, just as the two of them turned around and were about to fly towards the island, the image crystal of the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion rang. It should be a message from Mother. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was secretly delighted and immediately took out the image crystal. In the blink of an eye, a shadow appeared. Who else could it be but the mysterious lady? The mysterious lady looked at the two of them and asked, "Are you currently in the southwest of the inner sea?" "How do you know?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Looks like that kid from the Mu family didn't make a mistake." The mysterious lady's eyes darkened slightly. "Mu Qing?" Qin Feiyang said. "Yes." In the inner sea, his heavenly eye can't predict your exact location, but he can predict your approximate location. Now, they have already entered the inner sea, and they use the space-time gate to directly teleport in. The mysterious lady said. What? Qin Feiyang's expression changed and said, Then the Mermaid Emperor's divine sense has disappeared. The mysterious lady nodded. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, Then hurry up and come in to save us. No, the white-robed old man and the other fake god of the main tower are guarding the island. With the white-robed old man here, we can't enter at all. The mysterious lady said solemnly. The white-robed old man is guarding? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, This should be Mu Qing's idea, right? Yes. He has already predicted that we will come to save you, so he specifically asked the white-robed old man to stay on the island. To be honest, I really have to look at that kid from the Mu family in a different light now. No matter what he does it flawlessly, almost as good as you. I really regret that I didn't kill him earlier. The mysterious lady sighed. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and said helplessly, It's too late to say anything now. We can only think of a way ourselves. Then it's up to you. You must bring my daughter out alive. The mysterious lady said. Qin Feiyang nodded, but suddenly frowned and said, Your daughter! The mysterious lady was also stunned, looked at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and asked, Rushwing, haven't you told him yet? No. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head. This, listening to the conversation between the two, Qin Feiyang was dumbstruck, unable to come back to his senses for a long time. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was actually the daughter of the mysterious lady? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion looked at Qin Feiyang and said unhappily, What kind of expression is that? I am her daughter. Is it that unbelievable? It's not unbelievable. It's just that I can't accept it. Qin Feiyang muttered, like mother, like daughter. It seemed that he had to be careful of this woman in the future. Suddenly, the middle-aged man next to the mysterious lady asked, Where are you guys now? Devil's Island. Qin Feiyang said. What? You guys aren't planning to enter the Devil's Island, are you? The middle-aged man's expression changed. Do we have any other choice now? Qin Feiyang laughed bitterly. The middle-aged man said, You can't act recklessly, even I don't dare to rashly step into the Devil's Island. With your cultivation, once you enter, you will definitely die. Will we definitely die? Not necessarily. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at the Devil's Island and muttered to himself. After the conversation ended, Qin Feiyang looked at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and asked curiously, If your mother is her, then who is your father? I say, do you know how dangerous our current situation is? You still have the mood to ask these questions? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was furious. Qin Feiyang said, I was thinking, since you and your mother are so strong, then your father must be even stronger. If we go find him, then wouldn't we be saved? My father! The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion raised her eyebrows and said expressionlessly, He is already dead. Dead. Qin Feiyang was startled and laughed embarrassedly. Sorry, I mentioned something that hurts you. It's fine. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head. Qin Feiyang said again, Then can you let me see your true appearance? You're not finished, are you? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion immediately gnashed her teeth. Okay, I won't say any more. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand, then turned his head to look at the Devil's Island again. Were they really going to enter this place? But other than this, where else could help them escape this calamity? The greatest pain in the world was knowing that one was going to die, but one could only wait helplessly for death. Qin Feiyang was in such a mood right now. Torture, torment, and unceasing destruction of his spirit. He had thought of the concealment technique and the ancient castle, but none of them worked. As expected, one still needed to be strong. No matter how powerful external objects were, they could only solve the urgent situation for a while. Time passed breath by breath. After an unknown period of time, a terrifying divine sense suddenly enveloped them. It's here. Qin Feiyang and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion immediately had gloomy expressions. At the same time, in the sky above the distant sea, Yigleo's face revealed a trace of joy and said, "Qing, we found them!" "Where is it?" Mu Qing's spirit was lifted. "Next to an island in front. But I also know that island. It's called the Devil's Island, and it's not a good place." Yigleo said, "Devil's Island?" Mu Qing frowned and suddenly seemed to think of something and said in surprise, "It can't be that Devil's Island that deprives one's vitality and lifespan, right?" "That's it." Yigleo nodded. Mu Qing smiled coldly and urged, "Hurry up and get there." Yigleo immediately sped up, streaking across the sky like lightning, setting off huge waves. Chapter 11:29. Whoosh! Accompanied by two air-piercing sounds, Mu Qing and Yigleo landed in front of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, "You guys came really fast." It seemed like a compliment, but it was actually a mockery. And at this moment, he and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house were standing at the edge of the Devil's Island. As long as they turned around and took a step, they would be able to enter the Devil's Island. Standing here was to prevent Yigleo from using his pressure to imprison them, and Mu Qing was not a fool, so he naturally understood the meaning behind Qin Feiyang's words. He snorted coldly. If it wasn't for the Mermaid Emperor's divine sense blocking the way, you would have already become a prisoner. What's there to be proud of? Qin Feiyang laughed. This means that I have good relations with people. No matter where I go, there are people to get along with me. You have good relations with people? Mu Qing's expression was extremely strange. Now, whether it was his Mu family or the main tower, they were all chasing after this person. There was no place for this person on the Forgotten Continent, and in the great Qin Empire, he was also the enemy of the entire world. What kind of good relations was this? Was this a joke? Cut the crap. Now that you have nowhere to go, give me the divine crystal. I promise to give you a way out. Not only that, my Mu family will also do our best to protect you. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Think about it carefully. Mu Qing said. Qin Feiyang laughed. Good suggestion, but I'm afraid you don't have the qualifications to make me lower my head to you. Mu Qing said angrily, Do you have a choice now? Unless you want to enter the Devil's Island behind you. Sorry, I really do plan to do so. Qin Feiyang grabbed the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house and turned around to step into the Devil's Island. Immediately, a mysterious force enveloped them. This force was all-pervasive, drilling into their bodies. The two of them immediately felt that the qi and blood in their bodies began to flow crazily. Madman! What a madman! Ancestor, quickly see if you can take them out. Mu Qing hurriedly shouted. Yigleo's body shook, and a mighty divine aura surged out, pouncing towards Qin Feiyang and Huang Xiaolong. However, when the divine might reached the edge of the demonic island, it was repelled by an invisible force. No, Yigleo shook his head and transmitted, What should we do now? We still need him. If he dies here, then... Qin Feiyang, we can discuss this slowly. Don't do anything stupid. Get out of here. Before Yigleo could finish, Mu Qing shouted anxiously. Qin Feiyang ignored him. He looked at the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's young miss and said, This place is too dangerous. Go hide in the castle first. In just a short while, the eyes of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's young miss turned turbid and weak. One could imagine that the face under the veil was definitely aging. What about you? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house was worried. "I'll think of a way," Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, and then sent the young miss of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion to the castle. Next, he tentatively took a step back and immediately felt an invisible force blocking his back. This was enough to show that the Devil Island could only be entered and not exited. Mu Qing stared fixedly at Qin Feiyang's back and roared, "Did you hear me? Come out." "I can't get out," Qin Feiyang said without turning his head, looking at the center of the island, his eyes flickering. In the middle of the island, there was a dark red mountain peak that towered into the clouds like a magic sword. He could clearly feel that whether it was the mysterious power behind him or the power that was robbing his body of blood and vitality, they all originated from that huge mountain. "It seems that if I want to break through this calamity of death, I can only go to the top of that giant mountain to take a look," Qin Feiyang muttered, then decisively took a step forward and rushed towards the giant mountain. "Bastard!" Seeing this, Mu Qing was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only watch as Qin Feiyang walked towards death step by step. On the island, the blood and vitality in Qin Feiyang's body was flowing out too quickly. In less than 10 breaths, he felt like he was about to collapse. Shua! He glanced at the giant mountain in the middle of the island and quickly entered the castle. At this moment, he already looked like a doddering old man. "Boss, are you all right?" Seeing Qin Feiyang's expression, Fatso and the others were shocked and immediately stood up to surround Qin Feiyang. "I'm fine." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. The fused fire of life was quickly replenishing the blood and vitality that he had lost earlier. Wolf King said, "Tell us, what exactly is the situation on the Devil Island?" Qin Feiyang said, "The situation on the Devil Island is exactly the same as what Wang Ziqing said." Everyone lowered their heads and pondered. There was strength in numbers. "Let's think of a way together." Looking at everyone, Viper sighed. "Don't think about it. Dan Wankai and I know the Devil Island better than any of you. Once you enter, you will never be able to leave alive." Dan Wankai nodded with a look of despair. Fatso said, "There is nothing absolute in this world. There must be a way, it's just that we don't know." Suddenly, Lu Hong raised her head and looked at Fatso and the others, saying, "Did you guys notice that the situation on this Devil Island is exactly the same as the Black Dragon Glacier?" Black Dragon Glacier. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. When he heard Wang Ziqing talk about the Devil Island last time, he thought of the Black Dragon Glacier. He didn't expect that Lu Hong would also think of the same thing. After a moment of silence, Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "I think I know how to resist the mysterious power on the Devil Island." Viper and Dan Wankai looked at him in surprise. "Last time, we were able to walk out of the Black Dragon Glacier. I believe we can do it this time too." Qin Feiyang smiled confidently. After recovering a lot of his vitality and blood, he appeared on the Devil Island again. That mysterious power once again enveloped him. Qin Feiyang's mind moved, and a black light flashed out from between his eyebrows. It was the ancient castle. "Please." Qin Feiyang looked at the ancient castle and said with an extremely sincere tone, "Last time at the Black Dragon Glacier, it was the ancient castle that helped everyone block the power of the demon dragon's heart and demon dragon's eye." Buzz. The ancient castle was silent for a moment, then suddenly flew above Qin Feiyang's head and shone down strands of divine light, enveloping Qin Feiyang inside. At that moment, Qin Feiyang felt that the mysterious power that was robbing his vitality and blood had disappeared. Swish! At this time, a blood-red figure appeared beside Qin Feiyang. It was the inner demons. He looked up at the ancient castle and laughed. "I thought that I would have to stomp on it a few times like last time before it would be obedient." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. The last time the inner demons stepped on the ancient castle at the Black Dragon Glacier, it was still fresh in his memory. The inner demons turned around and looked at Mu Qing and Yiglao in the sky above the sea. The expressions on their faces were extremely interesting. They thought that Qin Feiyang would definitely die if he entered the Devil Island. But they didn't expect the ancient castle to be able to block that power. The inner demons raised the corner of his mouth and looked at Yiglao provocatively, saying, "Old man, your ancestor and ancestor are both standing here. If you have the ability to come and kill us." Ancestor, ancestor. Yiglao was suspicious. "You can't even understand this. Aren't you too stupid? Look, I used to be called Ancestor Mu. So doesn't that mean I'm the ancestor of your Mu family? And I'm called Ancestor Mu. So I'm naturally the ancestor of your Mu family." The inner demons joked. Yiglao's face darkened, his hands clenched tightly, and his eyes were extremely scary. "TSK! TSK! TSK! How dare you treat your ancestor and ancestor like this? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Sai, forget it. We don't want unfilial descendants like you." The inner demons shook his head with a look of disappointment. Yiglao roared, "Little beast, come out if you have the ability. See if this old man doesn't destroy you." The inner demons looked at him triumphantly and said lightly, "Come in if you have the ability. See if this young master doesn't destroy you." Bastard, is this how the descendants of your Qin family are raised? Elder Yi was so angry that his hair stood on end. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Yiglao and said in a deep voice, "You don't need to worry about our upbringing. You should worry more about the descendants of the Mu family." "Huh." Mu Qing was stunned and said angrily, "Did I provoke you? Are you talking about me?" "Did I talk about you?" Qin Feiyang said. Mu Qing said, "Nonsense, I'm a descendant of the Mu family, of course. You're talking about me too." Qin Feiyang suddenly said, "Is that so? Then I'll admit it. I'm talking about you. What can you do?" Mu Qing gritted his teeth. Blue veins popped out. He was extremely angry. If it was any other time, in the face of such provocation, he would have already done it, but now he could only endure. This kind of sullen feeling was driving him crazy. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons were very happy. A dignified, fake god couldn't do anything to them. What could be more satisfying than this? "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Get out of here. You don't dare to come in anyway." Qin Feiyang looked at the two disdainfully, then turned to look at the inner demons and said, "I have to go to the top of the mountain to take a look. You go back to the inner world." "I don't want to go back now, because I'm also very interested in that giant mountain." The inner demons looked back at the top of the mountain, his eyes flashing. Qin Feiyang nodded. "Okay, let's go together, but you can't stay outside for too long. Your consciousness will dissipate." Whether it was him or the inner demons, as long as their consciousness left their bodies, they could only live in the inner world. Of course, it's not that they can't leave the inner world, but there's a time limit. After the time limit, their consciousness will dissipate. That's not right. Shouldn't you be eager for me to disappear? Why are you concerned about me now? The inner demons looked at Qin Feiyang, puzzled. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Indeed, in the past, he couldn't wait for the inner demons to get out of here as soon as possible, but now he had a strange feeling for the inner demons in his heart. This feeling was like his twin brother, which made it difficult for him to part with him. The inner demons suddenly poked Qin Feiyang's back and laughed. "Look at your expression. Are you a little reluctant to part with me? Don't be mushy. I just think you have some value to me." Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. "Don't forget, I'm your inner demons. I know what you're thinking." The inner demons smiled proudly and then said, "Okay, let's not talk nonsense. Let's go." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Whoosh! At that moment, Chapter 1130. Sigh. Although I don't want to admit it, this child is indeed an amazing person. Yiglao suddenly loosened his clenched fists and let out a long sigh. Mu Qing said unhappily, Patriarch, can you not boost his morale and diminish our own? I'm not boosting his morale. Look at that inner demons. If it were anyone else, they would have been replaced by the inner demons long ago. But he has a way to get along with the inner demons peacefully. Yigleo said. Mu Qing was silent. But it's precisely because of this that we have to kill him. The mysterious ancient castle, the powerful six-word divine art, and that indestructible dagger. If this child is not eliminated, he will definitely become the biggest stumbling block for our Mu family in the future. Yigleo paused after every word, his eyes filled with killing intent. Mu Qing clenched his fists tightly. Although Yigleo's killing intent was aroused, he also expressed his appreciation and recognition of Qin Feiyang. He would not allow such a thing to happen, because in this world, it was enough to have one monster like him. He would not allow a second one to appear. Let's talk about Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. Not long after, they stepped on the white bones and arrived at the foot of the giant mountain. The giant mountain towered into the clouds, its entire body glowing with a dark red light and emitting a shocking smell of blood. The inner demons reached out and touched the rock wall, exclaiming, "This is actually dyed red with blood!" Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank, and he said in a deep voice, "I think that the blood of those creatures who accidentally trespassed on the demonic island should have been absorbed by this giant mountain after they died." The inner demons said, "Do you mean that this giant mountain is a life form?" "I don't know." Qin Feiyang shook his head and suddenly raised his arm. Battle chi surged, and he punched the rock wall with all his strength. Boom! There was a loud explosion, but the giant mountain didn't even budge. There wasn't even a single crack on the rock wall that he had struck. This, Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. One had to know. Now that he was a 4-star battle saint, it was no exaggeration to say that this punch was enough to destroy mountains and rivers. However, at this moment, it was actually unable to do anything to a giant mountain. Something was off. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other and jumped up at the same time toward the peak of the mountain. Along the way, they carefully observed the cliff, but they didn't find anything. A dozen breaths later, the two of them finally reached the peak of the mountain. They stood at the edge of the cliff and looked ahead. The peak of the mountain was the same as the other places. It was completely devoid of life, like a land of death. Moreover, other than pieces of large and small protruding rocks, there was nothing else to be seen. Filled with suspicion, the two of them carefully searched the mountain peak. When they reached the center of the mountain peak, they were surprised to find that there was a tunnel entrance on the ground. The entrance was not big, only enough for 2 or 3 people to walk side by side. The two of them walked to the entrance and looked inside, only to see that it was pitch black inside like a bottomless pit. "Should we go down and take a look?" the inner demons asked. "Nonsense, of course we should." Qin Feiyang said, "Then let's go." The two of them were like newborn calves who weren't afraid of tigers. They directly jumped into the entrance and walked down the tunnel side by side. The tunnel was spiral-shaped and poured downwards. They didn't know where the end was. After walking for about 100 breaths, a rock cave suddenly came into their sight. The two of them were invigorated and quickly walked to the front of the rock cave. Immediately, they saw a cloud of black fog inside the rock cave. The rock cave was about 100 feet long. The black fog floated in the middle of the rock cave. It was as big as a dustpan. The fog lingered, giving the two of them a great sense of danger. The two of them looked at each other and swallowed their saliva. They stepped on the void and walked toward the black fog. They could clearly feel that the closer they got, the stronger the mysterious power that was isolated outside the ancient castle. Finally, the two of them walked to the front of the black fog. They felt that the black fog in front of them seemed to be sealing a terrifying demon. They couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. The same mysterious power, the same fog. Why do I feel that this place is somehow related to the Black Dragon Glacier? The inner demons transmitted. Connected. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said in surprise, "You mean there might be a strange heart and eye in this black fog?" The inner demons nodded. Qin Feiyang frowned and suddenly gritted his teeth. "Let's go and have a look." The two of them took a deep breath and stepped into the black fog. Immediately, the two of them stared at each other, full of surprise. In the black fog, there was no heart and eye as they thought. There was a piece of iron about the size of a palm and as thin as a cicada's wing. It was completely black, and whether it was the black fog here or the mysterious power, they were all emitted by this piece of iron. And this piece of iron gave the two of them a great sense of danger. They even suspected that if the ancient castle suddenly left now, they would probably become a pile of bones in an instant. This can't be some kind of divine iron, right? The inner demons carefully observed for a while, and suddenly said in surprise, "Divine iron!" Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly lit up. Divine iron was a legendary divine object, a necessary material for creating divine artifacts. But then, he frowned and shook his head. If it's divine iron, it shouldn't emit such a demonic power. But before he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang's eyes focused. Looking at the surface of the iron, he found that there were actually small dragon patterns on the surface of the iron. Immediately, his eyes lit up and said, "This is not a piece of iron at all. It's a dragon's reverse scale." Reverse scale! The inner demons' pupils shrank and said in surprise, "What kind of dragon's reverse scale can release such a terrifying power?" Qin Feiyang was also pondering this question. Suddenly, the two of them trembled slightly at the same time. Then, they looked at each other at the same time, their eyes full of horror. The inner demons said, "It seems that this place really has something to do with the demon dragon's heart and demon dragon's eye in the Black Dragon Glacier." Qin Feiyang guessed, maybe this reverse scale came from the same dragon as the demon dragon's heart and demon dragon's eye. The demon dragon mentioned by the Mu family? The inner demons asked. Qin Feiyang nodded. If that's the case, then this reverse scale is a treasure. Quickly find something to put it away, lest it be lost by the ancient castle again. The inner demons urged. "No. Have you forgotten what happened last time in the Black Dragon Glacier? When the demon dragon's heart and demon dragon's eye disappeared, the mysterious power also disappeared. And now we can stand here and talk because of this mysterious power. If this mysterious power disappeared, then facing Yigleo's anger, I'm afraid we won't even have the chance to beg for mercy." Qin Feiyang said. "That's true." The inner demons nodded. However, before his voice fell, the ancient castle suddenly dropped a ray of light, rolled up the reverse scale, and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons were stunned. After regaining their senses, the two immediately looked up and stared at the ancient castle angrily. As soon as they finished speaking, the reverse scale disappeared. This bastard castle did it on purpose, right? Damn it! What good will it do if we die? The inner demons angrily cursed. Not to mention the inner demons, even Qin Feiyang, who has a good temper, couldn't help but want to break out and curse. However, the ancient castle didn't pay attention to them at all. It turned into a stream of light and disappeared into Qin Feiyang's forehead. Damn it! The mysterious power really disappeared. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled, and he quickly turned around, rushed out of the tunnel, ran to the cliff of the giant peak, hid behind a protruding rock, and looked toward the sea. It was very far away, but he could vaguely see that Mu Qing and Yigleo were still standing in the sky above the sea, without the slightest intention of leaving. The inner demons ran up and urged, "What are you looking at? Go to the ancient castle, or it will be too late." "Wait." Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand, observed Mu Qing and the inner demons for a moment, and said, "They don't seem to have noticed that the mysterious power has disappeared." The inner demons was stunned and also turned his head to look, only to find that Mu Qing and the inner demons had indeed not entered the Devil's Island. The inner demon's eyes flashed and he chuckled. Then this is a good opportunity to escape. Yes. Let's leave quietly from the other side of the Devil's Island. Let them think that we are still on the island. Qin Feiyang also smiled, and without any delay, he immediately ran to the other side of the giant peak and then jumped down. The inner demons also entered the inner world. When they landed on the ground below the giant peak, Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the mist of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion appeared out of thin air. It really disappeared. She looked at the void in surprise. The mysterious power is invisible and colorless. Mu Qing and Yigleo should not be able to discover it for a while. Let's go quickly, Qin Feiyang urged. Okay. The mists of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion hurriedly nodded, and then swept up Qin Feiyang, turned into a stream of light, and quickly left the Devil's Island, and then rushed deeper into the inner sea without looking back. About half an hour passed. Whoosh! Accompanied by the sound of the air being torn apart, an old man in white clothes cut through the sky and landed in front of Mu Qing and the inner demons. It was the false god from the main tower. So you guys are here. How is it? Have you found Qin Feiyang? The old man in white clothes asked. Yigleo raised his eyebrows imperceptibly, looked at the Devil's Island, and said, Found him on the island. The old man in white clothes was overjoyed, and when he turned to look at the Devil's Island, his expression changed, and he said in surprise, It can't be. He went to this island. Yigleo nodded. This is the Devil's Island. Isn't he afraid of death? The old man in white clothes was surprised. Of course he is afraid of death, but unfortunately he is not dead, Yigleo said in a low voice. At the same time, in the deepest part of the inner sea, two figures swept across the sky above an island, stirring up huge waves. It was Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. More than an hour had passed, and they had already gone far, and the sea beasts they encountered now were almost all Dharch beasts. We finally got rid of them. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house looked at the sea behind her, and seeing that Mu Qing and Yigleo did not chase after them, she heaved a long sigh of relief. It's still too early to be happy. As long as we don't leave the inner sea, the danger will always be there. It can only be said that it's safe for now, Qin Feiyang said. Whether it was the real space-time gate or the fake one, it could only be open once a day. As for the real space-time gate, Mu Qing and Yigleo would definitely not carry it with them. Therefore, he concluded that the space-time gate opened on the island must be the fake one in Mu Qing's hands. With only one space-time gate, even if Mu Qing discovered that they had left, even if Mu Qing could predict their general direction, it would still take some time to catch up with them. However, don't forget that Yigleo was a false god, and his speed was not something they could compare to. That was why Qin Feiyang said that it was safe for now. Why don't we take the opportunity to go back now? Although there are two false gods on the island, my mother and the others are also there. With them holding back the two false gods, it shouldn't be a problem for us to escape. Chapter 1131. No, we need 6 days to go back. 6 days is too long. With Mu Qing's cautious personality, I think it won't take more than a day for him to discover that we have already left. At that time, when he predicts our location and sees through our purpose, he will definitely make detailed arrangements immediately. In short, I don't agree with the suggestion of returning to the island. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Rather than saying that this was a great escape, it was better to say that this was a game between him and Mu Qing. If he lost, he would die and turn into dust. If he won, he would leap over the dragon gate and soar into the sky. Then, if we can't return to the island, how can we leave? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house asked. It was undeniable that what Qin Feiyang said made sense. However, the island was the only entrance to the inner sea. If they wanted to leave, they had to pass through the island. In other words, this was something that they would have to face sooner or later. Qin Feiyang said, "Don't panic, let me think about it." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house fell silent. She brought Qin Feiyang and continued to fly deeper into the inner sea. Stop. After a while, Qin Feiyang suddenly spoke. "I've thought of a way." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house slammed on the brakes and stopped in the air. She looked at Qin Feiyang excitedly. "You said that it was my ancestor who defeated the divine beast here and sealed its cultivation. In that case, was the sealing formation here also set up by him?" Qin Feiyang asked instead of answering. "Yes." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house nodded. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he said in a deep voice, "I think we can make a bet." "How?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house was surprised. "I am the descendant of my ancestor and have received his inheritance. I think I should be able to break the sealing barrier here," Qin Feiyang said. "Break the barrier?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house stared at him with her beautiful eyes. In the past, the Qin Emperor roamed the 4 seas and left behind countless legends. In the current world, there was probably no one who dared to say that they had the ability to break the sealing barrier he had set up. However, the person in front of him might really be able to do it. This was because he was the second person in history to possess the purple gold dragon blood. The most important thing was, at that time on the Divine Island, the appearance of the Mermaid Emperor's divine consciousness was also because of this person. This represented limitless possibilities. Qin Feiyang said, "Let's go. Let's hurry to the border between the Endless Sea and the Inland Sea." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded and picked up Qin Feiyang. Then she took a mysterious step and tore through the air at lightning speed. This was a perfect support-type battle art. Qin Feiyang asked, "Your mother has countless perfect battle arts. She should also have divine arts, right?" "Yes." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "Then why haven't I seen you use your divine technique?" "I didn't. My mother said that my cultivation is still too weak at the moment, so I shouldn't bite off more than I can chew. She said that I should wait until I reach the semi-divinity realm before she will give me the divine art." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and sighed, "You're really lucky." "Why do you say that?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion did not understand. Qin Feiyang said with melancholy, "I also have a mother who loves me dearly, but all these years I have only seen her a few times." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion looked at him with a complicated expression and comforted him. "Mother has also told me about your matter. Don't be depressed because sooner or later, you two will truly be reunited." "Thank you." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Oh, right, after being together for so many days. I still don't know your full name. Is it convenient for you to reveal it?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was silent for a moment, then laughed. "You can just call me Rua Shuang." Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. This woman was obviously hiding her surname. However, he was puzzled. What was there to hide? Time flew. Night fell. Devil's Island. That little bastard still hasn't appeared. Is he really planning to waste time with us? Yiglao looked at the giant peak in the middle of the Devil's Island, his brows tightly knitted together. Mu Qing and the old man from the main pagoda also had frustrated looks on their faces. Time passed breath by breath. Suddenly, on the left side of the Devil's Island, a sea beast with a low cultivation suddenly jumped out of the sea and barged into the Devil's Island. Mu Qing and the other two only casually glanced at the sea beast before looking away. But very quickly, then they realized that something was amiss. Impossible. Suddenly, The three of them exclaimed in unison and turned to look at the sea beast again. They saw that the sea beast was actually alive and kicking on the island, without any signs of life. How could this be? The three of them hurriedly flew over, but they did not dare to approach the Devil's Island. They stood above the sea and observed the sea beast at a close distance. The appearance of the three of them also frightened the sea beast, and it hurriedly fled towards the center of the Devil's Island. Even when it disappeared from their sight, the sea beast did not fall to the ground and die. It's actually fine. The three of them were dumbstruck. Suddenly, Mu Qing gritted her teeth and said in a deep voice, "I'll go and try." "Don't go." Yigleo hurriedly grabbed Mu Qing and shook his head. Mu Qing said, "Then be careful." After all, Yigleo was a pseudo-god. If something unexpected happened, he would have the ability to save himself. Swoosh! Yigleo landed on the edge of the Devil's Island. Looking at the piles of bones, he took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and stepped into the island. The moment he entered the island, all the hair on his body stood on end, afraid that something bad would happen to him. However, 1 breath, 2 breaths, 5 breaths, 10 breaths. Even after 10 breaths, he did not feel anything strange. Then he suddenly opened his eyes, which were full of surprise. Swoosh! Mu Qing and the old man looked at each other and also landed beside Yigleo. "He's really fine?" The old man was shocked. Other than the countless bones under his feet, there was nothing strange. "That's not right." When Qin Feiyang and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house entered the Devil's Island, we saw them with our own eyes. Not long after, they showed signs of aging. But why are we completely fine now? Mu Qing looked around, her eyes full of suspicion. Yigleo shuddered and said, "We can't care so much. Let's go to the top of the mountain and take a look." Mu Qing raised her head and looked at the top of the mountain. Her eyes flickered with a cold light as she muttered, "This time I definitely won't let you escape." Whoosh! The three of them soared into the sky and landed on the top of the mountain like lightning. Yigleo stood at a commanding point and looked down at the top of the mountain. He shook his head and said, "There's no one, but there's a tunnel entrance in the middle." The three of them rushed into the tunnel without stopping. When they entered the cave, they still did not see any trace of Qin Feiyang. Their hearts immediately sank. Yigleo said, "He can't be in the castle, right?" "No." Mu Qing shook her head and said, "It can't be that simple. I must have overlooked something." Buzz! All of a sudden, he activated his omniscient eye and spied on Qin Feiyang's whereabouts. "Damn it!" Soon, he roared in exasperation. "What's wrong?" Yigleo and Mu Qing looked at him in surprise. "He's already gone. I should have known. With the castle protecting him, he won't stay here and wait for death. And I was so arrogant. I thought he would continue to waste time with us here. Ha! I'm so stupid." Mu Qing threw her head back and laughed hysterically. "He's gone." Yigleo and Mu Qing looked at each other and suddenly burned with anger. He had actually escaped? Didn't that mean they had waited for nothing all this time? However, when he noticed Mu Qing's expression, Yigleo suppressed his anger and sighed deeply. It seemed that this matter had a big impact on Mu Qing. He stepped forward and patted Mu Qing's shoulder, comforting her. "Don't blame yourself. This has nothing to do with you. He's too cunning. Don't comfort me. In fact, I've long realized that I can't beat him at all. It's just that I've been running away and unwilling to admit it." Mu Qing shook her head. Her face was full of self-mockery. Yigleo said with a smile, "Who doesn't make mistakes? Don't give up. The most important thing now is to find him." "That's right. We can't let them leave the inland sea. Immediately inform the people guarding the mythical island to take precautions. Don't let Qin Feiyang take the opportunity to slip away." The old man in the main tower said. "No, they didn't go to the mythical island. Mu Qing said. With Yigleo's comfort, he regained his confidence. They didn't go to the mythical island? Then where did they go? Is there another entrance to the inland sea? Yigleo was surprised. Mu Qing said they went deeper into the inland sea. But I can't guess why they did that. Then what are we waiting for? Go after them, the old man in the main tower urged. Then he rushed out of the tunnel and rushed toward the depths of the inland sea at his maximum speed. If we go after them now, can we still catch up? Yigleo muttered to himself as he followed behind the old man with Mu Qing. Mu Qing said, "It doesn't matter if we can't catch up now. It will be dawn in a few hours, and we can open the space-time door again." Yigleo's eyes lit up. He laughed and said, "That's right. As long as we have the space-time door, no matter how far they run, we can catch up with them." Time flew by. Midnight. The inland sea was shrouded in darkness. However, whether it was Mu Qing's group or Qin Feiyang's group, they could see everything around them clearly, because at their cultivation level, there was no difference between day and night. In the sky above the sea, huge waves surged and strong winds howled. The auras of emperors filled every corner of the deep sea. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix pavilion flew with Qin Feiyang while pointing at the sea ahead. She smiled and said, "We're here." Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked over. He saw an island several kilometers away on the surface of the sea. That island was very strange. It was only about half a mile wide and more than 10,000 feet tall. However, its length could not be measured with numbers. It was like a huge dragon that extended to the ends of both sides. That island is called Dragon Island. It is the boundary between the endless sea and the inland sea. It runs through the entire inland sea. And Dragon Island is the same as the Island of Gods. It has been tempered by your ancestor with divine power. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "Tempered by divine power?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes, after being tempered by divine power, even if you bombard it, you won't be able to destroy it, unless your cultivation level surpasses your ancestors. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "I see." Qin Feiyang mumbled. Whoosh! More than 10 breaths later, the two of them descended above Dragon Island. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion waved her hand. A wave of battle aura appeared and pounced toward the void ahead. Buzz! When the battle aura reached the center of Dragon Island, a purple gold light curtain suddenly appeared in the void and blocked the battle aura. When the battle aura dissipated, the purple gold light curtain also disappeared. That's the sealing barrier. Chapter 1132. Qin Feiyang walked forward and extended his hand into the air. The purple gold light screen appeared again. A strong sense of intimacy arose spontaneously. "Ancestor, is this your aura?" Qin Feiyang muttered. Inside the sealing barrier, he could feel a domineering aura that made all living things submit. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house walked to his side and said, "Now is not the time to think of someone. Quickly try and see if you can break this sealing barrier." If they couldn't break it, then their trip would have been in vain. Qin Feiyang restrained his thoughts. The power in his body roared out from his palm, rushing towards the sealing barrier. However, the barrier did not move at all. Seeing this, the miss of the Dragon Phoenix house's face immediately paled. "Don't worry. I believe it can be done," Qin Feiyang whispered. The purple gold dragon Qi gushed out and rushed towards the barrier. A scene that surprised the two of them appeared. The sealing barrier actually absorbed all of the purple gold dragon Qi. Could it be effective? The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house trembled, her eyes burning with a strong flame of hope. Qin Feiyang could not help but feel refreshed. The purple gold dragon Qi in his energy reserve poured out, continuously flowing into the sealing barrier. However, Although the purple gold dragon chi was completely absorbed by the barrier, there were no signs of the barrier cracking. Suddenly, the miss of the Dragon Phoenix house seemed to have thought of something. Her expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly said, "Stop!" Qin Feiyang quickly retracted his arm and turned to look at her suspiciously. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house said in a deep voice, "In my opinion, by doing this, not only will you not be able to break the barrier, it will instead make the sealing barrier even stronger." Stronger? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Yes, this sealing barrier is also formed by the purple gold dragon chi, which is why it absorbed your purple gold dragon chi. In short, you are strengthening the sealing barrier by injecting the purple gold dragon chi. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house nodded. Ugh! Qin Feiyang was stunned. There was such a thing? The miss of the Dragon Phoenix house said, "Why don't you try again with the purple gold dragon soul and the divine dragon method?" Qin Feiyang nodded. With a thought, the purple gold dragon soul roared and rushed toward the enchantment with surging dragon might. With a loud boom, the purple gold dragon soul crashed into the sealing enchantment. But in the end, not only did the sealing enchantment not break, but the purple gold dragon soul also collapsed, turning into purple gold divine light that was completely absorbed by the enchantment. Even that won't do. Qin Feiyang was furious. The first move, second move, and third move of the divine dragon incantation were all unleashed, bombarding the sealing barrier. Rumble. One after another, loud noises exploded above the Dragon Island, shaking the heavens and the earth. But the result was the same as before. The sealing barrier did not react at all. The miss of the Longfeng house sighed and said, "It seems that you are thinking too much." Qin Feiyang couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Don't waste time, let's go. If we are lucky, maybe we can reach the island before Mu Qing and the others find out." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. "That's the only way." Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly, raised his head to look at the sealing enchantment, and turned to leave. But just as he took a few steps, he suddenly stopped. "What's wrong?" The miss of the Longfeng house was puzzled. Qin Feiyang asked, "When we were on the island that day, how did the Mermaid Emperor's divine sense appear?" "At that time, I was busy running for my life. How could I remember this? Maybe he sensed your aura and appeared on his own." The miss of the Longfeng house shook her head. "No. If that's the case, he should have appeared the last time I came to Qinghai. Because last time, I even went to the bottom of the lake to take a look. So, there must be another reason." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he fell into deep thought. He remembered that when he was running for his life on the island, he was seriously injured by the chief pagoda master, and his body was badly mutilated. And when he and the miss of the Longfeng house flew over the lake changed. This was definitely not a coincidence. Badly mutilated, the lake changed divine sense. Suddenly, his eyes shone brightly as he said, "I know, it must be because of my blood. Blood?" The miss of the Longfeng house was suspicious. "That's right. When I passed over the lake, it must have been my blood that dripped into the lake and awakened the Mermaid Emperor's divine sense. Since my blood can awaken the Mermaid Emperor's divine sense, then it should be able to break this sealing enchantment." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he quickly cut the tip of his index finger, and a drop of purple gold dragon blood flowed out from the wound. Buzz! As soon as the purple gold dragon blood appeared, the purple gold light screen that had disappeared suddenly appeared on its own, emitting a dazzling divine light. The miss of the Longfeng house was stunned. This is the reaction of the bloodline power. It has sensed the purple gold dragon blood. Qin Feiyang's spirits were lifted. Previously, he had ignored the purple gold dragon blood. But in fact, the purple gold dragon blood was the real bond between him and his ancestor. Because blood was thicker than water, under the nervous, perturbed, and expectant gaze of the miss of the Longfeng house, Qin Feiyong raised his arm and pointed his index finger at the sealing enchantment. Buzz! When the drop of purple gold dragon blood touched the sealing enchantment, a crack immediately appeared on the enchantment, and then it turned into a light door that led to the endless sea. It's broken! The miss of the Longfeng house was extremely excited. Even when she received the news that Qin Feiyong had snatched the divine crystal, she had not been so excited, because this was a desperate situation. For the past few days, she had been in despair. Now that she suddenly saw a way out, how could she not be excited? Let's go! She couldn't wait to rush through the light door and appear on the other side of the sealing enchantment. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. He also stepped out, crossed the light door, and landed beside the miss of the Longfeng house. The light door closed. The purple gold light screen also quickly disappeared into the void, as if it had never appeared. I finally escaped. He looked at the inner sea, his face full of hope. That's right. The miss of the Longfeng house nodded and took out the image crystal. Qin Feiyong knew that she must have informed the mysterious lady. As expected, not long after, the mysterious lady's shadow appeared and immediately asked, "How are you guys? Did the people from the main tower and the Mu family catch up to you?" The miss of the Longfeng house smiled and said, "We have already left the inner sea." Left? The mysterious lady was stunned and frowned. "We have been hiding on the island. Why didn't we see you guys?" The middle-aged man also had a suspicious look on his face. The miss of the Longfeng house said, "We didn't return to the island. We left from the Dragon Island." Dragon Island? What's going on? Why didn't we know that there was an entrance to the Dragon Island? The two of them were bewildered. It's Qin Feiyong. His purple gold dragon blood can break the seal enchantment. The miss of the Longfeng house explained the previous situation in a simple and clear manner. I see. Only then did the two of them come to a realization. The mysterious lady looked at Qin Feiyong in disbelief and said, "Give us the coordinates. We will go there immediately." Okay. The miss of the Longfeng house nodded. After giving the mysterious lady the coordinates, she turned off the image crystal and looked at Qin Feiyong. She smiled and said, "After we meet up with Mother and the others, we will be completely safe." Qin Feiyong smiled, looked up at the night sky, and said, "It should be early in the morning now." Yeah, what's wrong? The miss of the Longfeng house was puzzled. After being chased for so long, I definitely have to watch a good show. The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth lifted as he took out the image crystal. Buzz! The next moment, Mu Qing's shadow appeared in the air. Seeing that it was Qin Feiyong, Mu Qing immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation and roared, "You still dare to send me a message?" He thought that Qin Feiyong was deliberately provoking him. Of course, Qin Feiyong did it on purpose. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "It's past midnight. Are you preparing to use the all-seeing eye to predict my location and then open the space-time gate to chase me? Are you afraid? If you are, then quickly surrender." Mu Qing sneered. "Afraid? You misunderstood. I sent you a message to tell you that there is no need to go through so much trouble. I will directly give you my current coordinates," Qin Feiyong said. After he finished speaking, he gave Mu Qing the coordinates. "What do you mean?" Mu Qing raised his eyebrows. "Nothing. I just want to help you save some time, seeing how hard you are chasing me. Hurry up, I will wait for you here." Qin Feiyong chuckled and turned off the image crystal. "You really gave him the coordinates? Have you forgotten that the space-time gate can directly teleport them out of the inland sea? You just escaped, and you are already like this. Are you arrogant?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house glared at him angrily. "Of course I didn't forget. And the coordinates I gave him are not the coordinates outside the barrier, but the coordinates inside the barrier. In other words, when they are teleported over, they will be inside the barrier," Qin Feiyong said. Ah, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house was stunned and said angrily, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" "I just turned off the image crystal, and you scolded me. Did I have the chance to say anything?" Qin Feiyang was helpless. I'm sorry. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house was rather embarrassed. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and said, "Actually, I have another purpose for doing this." "What is it?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house was stunned and asked. At that time on the island, Mu Qing was considered outside, and we were in the inner sea. He couldn't predict our exact location, and now he is in the inner sea and we are outside. That's why I want to see if he can use his all-seeing eye to accurately predict our current location. Qin Feiyang said, "There's no need to test it, right? Because whether it is our inner sea or his inner sea, there's a sealing barrier in between." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. Qin Feiyang said, "It's better to be careful. I don't want to fall." "It's better to be careful," the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house muttered. This little guy was too cautious. No wonder he could survive until today, even in the face of so many strong enemies. Swish! In the blink of an eye, Mu Qing, Yigleo, and the old man from the main pagoda finally appeared. Looking at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing raised her eyebrows and said, "I thought you were playing some tricks again. I didn't expect you to really be here. Do you think I'm you? How can an honest person like me play tricks?" Qin Feiyang's face was full of disdain. Chapter 1133. Yigleo and the old man from the main pagoda pounced towards Qin Feiyang almost at the same time as Mu Qing's words. At this moment, Qin Feiyang stood in front of the enchantment, only a few meters away from Mu Qing and the other two. For Yigleo and the other two fake gods, such a close distance, wouldn't it be easy to capture them? Yigleo and Mu Qing had full confidence that as long as Qin Feiyang didn't enter the ancient castle, they would definitely not be able to escape today. However, Mu Qing felt a sense of unease in her heart, because Qin Feiyang's current behavior was too strange. Facing two fake gods, not only was he not nervous at all, he even crossed his arms in front of his chest with a playful expression. What exactly is wrong? Mu Qing muttered to himself and suddenly looked down at Dragon Island. Qin Feiyang was so calm. There must be a reason. Could it be that there was an ambush below? But no. At such a close distance, even if there was an ambush on the island, it would be too late to rescue Qin Feiyang. All of this was said to be slow, but the whole process only happened in an instant. "Little bastard, let's see how you can run." Yigleo and Mu Qing had already rushed to the front of Qin Feiyang and the miss of Longfeng House, within reach. They laughed. Now, even if Qin Feiyang wanted to enter the ancient castle, it was already too late. However, just when the two of them thought that they would definitely be able to catch Qin Feiyang, they suddenly bumped into the void and fell down like a dog eating feces, looking extremely embarrassed. The purple gold light screen appeared. Mu Qing looked at the purple gold light screen in surprise. What was this thing? It could actually block two fake gods? Yigleo and Mu Qing got up. Their faces were also full of disbelief. Suddenly, the two of them seemed to have realized something as they lowered their heads and scanned the Dragon Island below. It was fine if they didn't look, but when they looked, their old faces suddenly became gloomy. What's wrong? Mu Qing looked at the two of them in surprise. Yigleo said, "I didn't notice it earlier, but now I realize that this is actually the Dragon Island, and that purplish golden radiance is the sealing enchantment that seals the inner sea." "What?" Mu Qing was stunned. Didn't that mean that Qin Feiyang and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had already escaped from the inland sea and entered the endless sea? Brilliant, brilliant. At this moment, Qin Feiyang clapped his hands and smiled brightly. "How did you get out?" Mu Qing suddenly raised his head and stared at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang joked, This must be a secret. How can I tell you a secret? Impossible. Even we can't break the seal of the inner sea, let alone you. Yigleo and the old man from the main pagoda also looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. Qin Feiyang said, "Then I want to ask you, who set up this enchantment?" "Your ancestor, the Qin Emperor." The old man from the main pagoda blurted out, but after he said that, he was stunned. That's right. This sealing enchantment was set up by the Qin Emperor. As the descendant of the Qin Emperor, it was not impossible for Qin Feiyang to break this enchantment. But how did he do it? That's right. I am the descendant of the Qin Emperor. Can his sealing enchantment trap me? Qin Feiyang smiled proudly and looked at Mu Qing. It's obviously right in front of you and within reach, but you can only look at it. How is it? Is it fun? Are you deliberately playing with me? Mu Qing clenched his hands. Yes, I am deliberately playing with you. You've been chasing me for so many days. If I don't get back some face, how can I establish myself in the future? Qin Feiyang laughed. Mu Qing said, "Whether it's the great Qin Empire or the Forgotten Continent, there's no place for you now." That's not necessarily true. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "Based on your cautious personality, after receiving my message, you should have used the all-seeing eye to predict my location, right?" "So what?" Mu Qing said in a deep voice. "Then I can rest assured. You're in the internal sea, so you can't accurately predict my location. And now, the space-time gate in your hand will only open tomorrow morning. In other words, I have 1 day to arrange my affairs, and 1 day is completely enough." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Mu Qing was about to go crazy. He did not expect that all of this was part of Qin Feiyang's plan. This made him doubt his own ability again. Could it be that he really could not compare to this person? Suddenly, Yigleo sneered and said, "Don't forget, we still have the Real space-time gate." "Then you'd better do it as soon as possible. Otherwise, when we leave, it will be difficult to find us again." Qin Feiyang joked. "Don't be too happy too early." Old E enunciated each and every word as his eyes were filled with rage. Qin Feiyang shrugged, looked at Mu Qing and said, "Actually, I've already seen through it. You've always wanted to compete with me, but obviously I've won." Mu Qing was silent, only staring at Qin Feiyang. "But don't worry, we'll definitely meet again. At that time, remember to work hard. Don't lose to me again, that would be embarrassing." Qin Feiyang laughed and ignored Mu Qing and the other two. He turned to look at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and asked suspiciously, "Why isn't your mother here yet?" "I don't know either." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head and then said worriedly, "Did something happen again?" Qin Feiyang could not help but frown. Time passed breath by breath. Mu Qing and the other two did not leave, because returning from Dragon Island to God's Island, even with Yigleo and the other two false gods, would take 2 to 3 days. As for the space-time gate, it would open tomorrow morning, so there was no need to do so. About 100 breaths passed. Whoosh! The mysterious lady and the middle-aged man finally appeared. "Why did you take so long? I thought something happened to you again." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was immediately dissatisfied. "How can there be so many accidents in the world? We just went to the Divine City to inquire about your teacher's situation." The mysterious lady transmitted her voice. "How is teacher?" the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion asked. The mysterious lady patted her shoulder and said, "Don't worry, his life is not in danger for the time being." Then she looked at Yigleo and the other two and asked in confusion, "What's going on with them?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion glanced at Qin Feiyang and pursed her lips. "It's all because of this wicked guy. He deliberately called them over and teased them." "Teased?" The mysterious lady was stunned and asked curiously, "How did he tease them the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion briefly explained. After hearing this, the mysterious lady was speechless. She turned to look at Qin Feiyong and shook her head. "Brat, you're really wicked." Qin Feiyong smiled embarrassedly. The mysterious lady shook her head and smiled. She glanced at Mu Qing and the other two, then turned to look at a teleportation gate. She looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "All right, let's go." "Who exactly are you?" Yiglao asked. "Who am I?" The mysterious lady's eyes flashed coldly. "Don't worry, you'll know who I am soon." With that, she stepped into the teleportation gate. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and the middle-aged man also walked in one after another. "Qin Feiyong, next time, I definitely won't lose to you again. I'll bet everything I have." Mu Qing suddenly spoke, staring at Qin Feiyong's back, her eyes flashing with madness. "I'll be waiting." Qin Feiyong stopped and said without looking back. Then he entered the teleportation gate. The endless sea was vast and boundless. There were countless emperor beasts and saint beasts. And in the central sea area of the endless sea, there were more than 10 islands of various sizes. The largest island was thousands of miles long, like a continent floating on the sea. And on one of the islands, there were villages everywhere. It was hard to estimate how many there were, but there were no exceptions. Outside every village, there was a stone tablet with a giant golden tiger engraved on it. At this time it was late at night. All the villages were closed, looking extremely deserted. At the same time, 2 men and 2 women stood side by side in the sky above the island, scanning the villages below. It was Qin Feiyong's group of 4. The mysterious lady smiled faintly. "All the tribesmen of the Sky Tiger tribe are here. You can check." "Are you sure they're all here?" Qin Feiyong frowned. There were more than 1 million people in the Sky Tiger tribe. He couldn't check them all. "Kid, am I so unworthy of your trust?" The mysterious lady glared at him angrily. "What do you think?" Qin Feiyong glanced at her indifferently. With a wave of his hand, Yan Wei appeared out of thin air. Qin Feiyong smiled. "Go." "Okay." Yan Wei nodded, unable to hide the joy on his face. He scanned the villages on the island, turned into a stream of light, and flew down. In a short while, the island became lively. Lights were brightly lit and noises could be heard from all directions. "Where are the divine crystals?" The mysterious lady retracted her gaze and asked Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong said, "Don't worry. I'll give them to you after I leave with them." "Leave with them? Are you kidding? You can't even protect yourself now. How are you going to protect them? Furthermore, the Sky Tiger tribe doesn't only have a few dozen or a few hundred people. There are more than 1 million people. How are you going to settle them?" The mysterious lady, the middle-aged man, and the young mistress of the Dragon Phoenix house were all shocked by Qin Feiyong's words. "I know that too, but I can't be at ease leaving them here with you." Qin Feiyong frowned. The mysterious lady said, "Are you worried that I'll use them to threaten you one day?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded without hiding anything. The mysterious lady smiled helplessly and sighed. "Actually, I'm not as bad as you think." "Is that so?" Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked at her suspiciously. "Yes, there are some things that I can't tell you yet, but I can swear that I have no ill intentions towards you now. Furthermore, I won't threaten you to do anything anymore." The mysterious lady spoke very seriously, and her attitude was very sincere. There was no trace of faking it. Qin Feiyong frowned and said, "Why do I feel like I've heard a joke?" "Brat, do you believe that I'll kill you?" The mysterious lady's face darkened. Why was this little guy so stubborn? "Anyway, you've harmed me a lot. This time won't make a difference." Qin Feiyong pursed his lips and said indifferently, "It's actually very simple if you want me to believe you. Give me a reason to believe you. My head is about to explode." Chapter 1134. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house looked at the irritated and mysterious lady, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "You don't believe in Mother, but you should at least believe in me, right? After all, we can be considered friends in need." Qin Feiyang frowned. "I guarantee with my personality that what you think will never happen again." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said again. Qin Feiyang glanced at the mother and daughter in front of him, his expression uncertain. Finally, he sighed deeply and looked at the two of them. "Wait a moment." After he finished speaking, he entered the castle and walked towards the iron box. Fatso frowned. "Boss, we risked our lives to snatch this. Are we really going to give it to them?" Hey! Fatso, don't be mistaken. The divine crystal was snatched by this emperor and Qin Feiyang. What does it have to do with you? The Spirit Snake Emperor said unhappily. Fatso said angrily, "What do you mean by that?" Although Fat Lord did not contribute, Fat Lord is also risking his life with you. TSK. The Spirit Snake Emperor laughed disdainfully, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Although Fatso is very shameless, this emperor agrees with him. If we give the divine crystal to them like this, we will be at a loss." Then what do you mean? Qin Feiyang looked at it suspiciously. "Last time, we agreed that if we snatched the divine crystal, you would agree to this emperor's request. Now, it's time for you to fulfill your promise. This emperor wants the divine arts. Of course, this emperor also knows that you don't have any extra divine arts, but now is your chance." The Spirit Snake Emperor laughed sinisterly. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. This guy's appetite was not small to actually keep thinking about the divine arts. "I understand." After looking deeply at the Spirit Snake Emperor, Qin Feiyang stepped forward to open the iron box, took out the divine crystal, and appeared outside again. Looking at the divinity crystal in Qin Feiyang's hand, the mysterious lady's eyes lit up with desire. Qin Feiyang was even more surprised and asked, "Can you tell me what this thing is for?" The mysterious madam rolled her eyes and said, "Don't give me that. If I tell you, you definitely won't give it to me." Qin Feiyang was extremely helpless. He lowered his head and looked at the eye crystal suspiciously, then casually threw it to the mysterious madam. The mysterious madam was startled. She quickly caught the divine crystal and glared at Qin Feiyang. She said angrily, "This is a treasure. Be careful." "How precious?" Qin Feiyang was curious. "Don't try to trick me." The mysterious lady snorted and lowered her head to size up the divine crystal. Her eyes shone brightly. Qin Feiyang glanced at her, then lowered his head and fell into deep thought. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix house walked to his side and asked in a low voice, "Are you thinking about where to go in the future?" "Yeah." "I definitely can't stay in the Forgotten Continent, and I can't go back to the Great Qin Empire. Where should I go?" "The world is so big, is there no place for me, Qin Feiyang?" Qin Feiyang sighed. "Now you really can't stay in the Forgotten Continent, because the main tower and the Mu family will definitely not let this matter go. And although we want to protect you, facing the alliance of the main tower and the Mu family, we are powerless." The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix house said. The mysterious madam put away the divine crystal and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "I think you should return to the Great Qin Empire." "Why?" Qin Feiyang turned to look at her and asked suspiciously, "Because as long as you return to the Great Qin Empire, even if Mu Qin can predict your location, he won't dare to bring people to cause trouble. Moreover, it has been more than half a year since you last went back. Don't you want to go back and see your mother?" The mysterious madam said, "Yes, but you also know that the Emperor's decree only said that within 10 years my mother and anyone related to me will not be harmed. It didn't say that they won't kill me. If I go back now, I will definitely be killed by them." Qin Feiyang said, "That's right. Let's not talk about the Emperor. Just the Imperial tutor will definitely not allow you to continue growing. but I believe that with your intelligence, you definitely have the ability to deal with it. The mysterious madam smiled. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. The mysterious madam said, "Of course, this is only my personal suggestion. As for what to do, it is still up to you to decide. Think about it carefully." Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth and said, "No need to think about it. I will return to the great Qin Empire immediately." "I knew you would make this choice." The mysterious madam smiled, knowing that there are tigers in the mountain, but still heading towards it. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Qin Feiyang's way of doing things was a bit stupid, but she praised it, because no matter what difficulties one encountered, one couldn't blindly run away. Only by bravely facing them could one become braver. "What about you guys? Aren't you afraid that the Great Tower and the Mujia will come to trouble you?" Qin Feiyang looked at the three and asked, "We are all fake gods. What is there to be afraid of? What's more, now that we have the divine crystal in hand, even if they find us here, they can't do anything to us." The mysterious madam sneered. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a strange light. The mysterious madam's words were not difficult to understand. "With the divine crystal in hand, the world is mine." It turned out that the importance of the divine crystal was beyond his imagination. Looking at Qin Feiyang's eyes, the mysterious madam raised her eyebrows and said, "Boy, I advise you not to have any bad ideas." Qin Feiyang pursed his lips and said, "Now that I have given you the divine crystal, shouldn't you give me some reward? You can't let me work for nothing, right? Doesn't the concealment art count? And those perfect battle techniques I gave you before, were they all blown by the wind? So, young man, don't be too greedy." The mysterious madam said meaningfully, "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Although I don't know what the divine crystal is used for, I can imagine that even if all the perfect battle techniques are combined, they can't be compared to the divine crystal." Qin Feiyang sneered. The mysterious madam was a little angry, but she suddenly thought of something and looked at Qin Feiyang proudly and said, "Now that the divine crystal is in my hands, what can you do to me if I don't give you any reward?" "What can I do to you? At most, I will just curse you behind your back, saying things like burning the bridge after crossing the river. Shameless things like that," Qin Feiyang said indifferently. "How dare you?" The mysterious madam's veins were bulging. Qin Feiyang said, "What's there to be afraid of? I used to curse you behind your back a lot. Little bastard, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" The mysterious madam said angrily, "Who are you to me? Will I be struck by lightning if I curse you? You think too much." Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. The mysterious madam was so angry that her body was trembling, and her eyes were filled with anger. Seeing the scene, the young lady and the middle-aged man hid at the side and snickered, their eyes meaningful. "What about me?" Qin Feiyang looked at the mysterious madam playfully. After this period of time, he did not find any malicious intent on the mysterious madam's face, so his mentality was relaxed. What about it? Humph! Sooner or later, you will understand how laughable your current actions are. The mysterious madam snorted and said, "Don't say that I am unreasonable. I will satisfy you once more. Tell me, what do you want this time?" "Divine art," Qin Feiyang blurted out without hesitation. "Are you deliberately looking for a beating?" "No." The mysterious madam was so angry that her teeth itched. The moment he opened his mouth, he was talking about the deity technique. Did he think that the deity technique was something that could be found on the market? Qin Feiyang said with a sneaky smile, "Stop pretending. Your daughter said that you have other divine arts." And the mysterious madam turned her head and glared at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion panicked and glared at Qin Feiyang angrily. She looked at the mysterious madam and smiled embarrassedly. "Mother, I was just saying it casually." "You can't even say it casually," the mysterious madam shouted, and then looked at Qin Feiyong and said, I don't have any divine art, but I can give you some more perfect battle arts. Stingy. Qin Feiyong muttered. Then do you want it or not? The mysterious madam said angrily. Yes, definitely. It's a waste if you don't want it. Qin Feiyong hurriedly nodded and brought Lu Hong and the others, as well as Wolf King and the other beasts, out of the castle. After coming out, everyone stared at the mysterious madam with burning eyes, like a group of bandits. What are you doing? Seeing this, the mysterious madam was extremely vigilant. She felt that, in the eyes of these guys, she was like a delicious cake. Didn't you say, give us some perfect battle arts? And this time, everyone has contributed to snatching the divine crystal, so naturally, everyone has to have a share. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. You! The mysterious madam gnashed her teeth. Why was this brat such a bastard? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, Mother, just satisfy him, or else he might really scold you behind your back. Sigh. The mysterious madam sighed helplessly, swept her gaze towards Lu Hong and the others, as well as Wolf King and the other beasts, and said, To be honest, I really have to thank you all. Thank you all for silently following Qin Feiyong all these years, helping him and taking care of him. It was your support that allowed him to reach where he is today. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Lu Hong and the others also looked at each other. Why did these words sound so strange? They followed Qin Feiyong, helped Qin Feiyong, and took care of Qin Feiyong. What did it have to do with this woman? On what basis did she say that she had to thank them on behalf of Qin Feiyong? The mysterious madam did not explain and continued. I will not treat you all unfairly. Right now, I will give each of you a perfect killing battle art and a perfect support battle art. Of course, I will not give any more to those who already have a perfect battle art. Then wouldn't Brother be at a disadvantage? Wolf King was dissatisfied because it already had the fury of the Mad God and the Void Escape Steps, both of which were perfect battle arts. I gave you the fury of the Mad God and the Void Escape Steps, so be content. The mysterious madam rolled her eyes at Wolf King, looked at Lu Hong and the others, and said, What do you lack? Tell me. I lack a perfect support battle art. Fatso was the first to step forward. Me too. Lu Hong nodded. And this emperor, the double-winged snow eagle, also hurriedly said, whether it was the double-winged snow eagle, Fatso, or Lu Hong, their perfect killing battle arts were all given to them by the mysterious madam. The black dragon snake, phantom snake emperor, and pangolin also hurriedly ran to the mysterious madam. It seems that we don't have a chance. Viper looked at Dan Wong-kai and said with a wry smile. Dan Wong-kai also had a regretful look on his face. As one of the 10 heroes of the Azure Sea, they even had forbidden arts. Naturally, they did not lack perfect battle arts, but after all, it was better to have more skills. Chapter 1135. A moment later, Fatty, Lu Hong, the two-winged snow eagle, and the other beasts all got the perfect battle art they wanted. Qin Feiyong also sent everyone to the castle. I can see that none of the people and beasts around you are good people. The mysterious lady rolled her eyes at Qin Feiyong. This is cute, isn't it? Qin Feiyong smiled, then stretched out his hand in front of the mysterious lady and said, What about me and Yen Wei? You still want it? The mysterious lady was stunned. Of course. I snatched the divine crystal from the chief pagoda master. You can't erase my credit. Qin Feiyong said, I really don't understand. The Qin Emperor is such an upright person. How can he have such a shameless descendant? If I didn't give you the concealment art, would you be able to snatch it? You still want credit? Aren't you ashamed? The mysterious lady was extremely annoyed. Qin Feiyong said, but you can't deny that I snatched the divine crystal from the chief pagoda master. Okay. Don't say anything. I'm afraid of you. I'll give it to you. What does Yan Wei lack? The mysterious lady said. She was afraid that if she continued, she would lose her temper. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said, I gave him the Sky Demon 9 steps you gave me last time. He still lacks a perfect battle art. The mysterious lady took out 2 jade slips from her Qingquan bag and threw them to Qin Feiyang. She snorted and said, Now don't scold me behind my back. Of course not. You're such a good person. If I still scold you, wouldn't I be a heartless person? Qin Feiyang grabbed the 2 jade slips and grinned. The mysterious lady rolled her eyes. Qin Feiyang chuckled mischievously and lowered his head to check the 2 jade slips. The 2 battle arts were Tiger Taming Art and Dragon Rising Art. Tiger Taming Art had a total of 4 moves. The first 3 moves all had the lethality of a perfect battle art. The power of the 4th move was even stronger than the previous 3 moves. It had already reached the peak of a perfect battle art. Qin Feiyang was somewhat surprised. He did not expect that the mysterious madam would actually give him such a powerful, killing battle art. But when he carefully looked at the soaring dragon art, his eyes suddenly lit up. The Dragon Rise incantation was even more powerful than the Tiger Taming incantation. However, what made it powerful was not the lethality of the soaring dragon art, but the fact that it could raise the user's cultivation by a small realm. Moreover, it could be stacked. For example, he was now a 4-star battle saint. When he displayed the perfect battle art, he could display the battle prowess of an 8-star battle saint. However, if he activated the soaring dragon art, he could display the battle prowess of a 9-star battle saint. If it was combined with the kill character art, it would be even more terrifying. The kill character art could be superimposed by 1 major realm, in addition to the soaring dragon art's minor realm. When Qin Feiyang activated the kill character art, he would be able to become a 5-star combat emperor. With the cultivation of a 5-star combat emperor and all his trump cards, he could even fight against a 9-star combat emperor. Thank you. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and raised his head to look at the mysterious madam gratefully. Now, his greatest weakness was that his cultivation was weak. The mysterious madam gave him this soaring dragon art. It was undoubtedly a timely help, allowing his battle prowess to soar. The mysterious madam smiled faintly and said, It's getting late. Let's hurry up and leave. Qin Feiyang nodded, then lowered his head to look at the island below and shouted, Yan Wei! Whoosh! Not long later, Yan Wei soared into the sky and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Do you want to stay here or follow me to the great Qin Empire? Yan Wei was stunned and asked, What about my clansmen? Qin Feiyang said they will stay here. Is it okay to stay here? Yan Wei was shocked and glanced at the mysterious madam and the other 2. Qin Feiyang said, Then do you have a better place to settle them? Yan Wei shook his head. The main tower and the Mu family would definitely not let him go. If his clansmen returned to the 9 regions, they would definitely be threatened by the main tower and the Mu family. Other than the 9 regions, there was only the central divine kingdom in the Forgotten Continent. It was even more impossible for his clansmen to go to the central divine kingdom. After thinking about it, it seemed that letting his clansmen stay here was indeed the best choice. Wait, wasn't there still the great Qin Empire? Yan Wei looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Can you let my clansmen move to the great Qin Empire? No. After being with me for so long, don't you know my situation? My situation in the great Qin Empire is worse than here. Moreover, even if we can find a place for your clansmen to stay in the great Qin Empire, we won't be able to move them over in a short period of time. Qin Feiyang said. Yan Wei frowned and walked to Qin Feiyang and said in a low voice, But I can't let them stay here. Qin Feiyang secretly laughed. even I believe them. You should also believe them. Okay. Yan Wei nodded helplessly. Qin Feiyang said, then think about it carefully. Do you want to stay here? I won't force you. I respect your choice. What's there to think about? Wherever you go, I'll go. Yan Wei didn't hesitate in the slightest. Qin Feiyang patted his shoulder. He didn't need to say anything. Then he turned to the mysterious madam and the middle-aged man and cupped his hands. Then I'll have to trouble the two seniors to take care of them. The mysterious madam said, after being together for so many years, this is the first time you've sincerely called me a senior. It's rare. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and turned to look at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. See you again. Take care of yourself, too. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion reminded. Qin Feiyang nodded and opened a teleportation gate. In the endless sea, one could open a teleportation gate that led directly to the 9 regions. Let's go. Qin Feiyang said to Yan Wei and stepped into the teleportation gate without looking back. Yan Wei lowered his head and glanced at his clansmen on the island before resolutely turning around and following in. Soon, the teleportation gate disappeared from everyone's sight. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion retracted her gaze and looked at the mysterious madam. She asked in confusion, Mother, why didn't you leave him behind? Now that we have the divine crystals, we have the ability to protect him. You haven't been with him for long, so you don't understand him. He has a fierce spirit that refuses to admit defeat. He definitely won't hide in one place just because some strong enemies have appeared. Furthermore, I don't want him to stay here either, because this won't do him any good. Instead, it will restrict his growth. The outside world is his stage. The mysterious madam laughed. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded and said with a smile, Back then, you tried every possible means to kill him, but now you're thinking for him everywhere. It really is, as the old saying goes, the world is unpredictable. That's right. Back then, who would have thought that this little fellow was his descendant? The mysterious madam raised her head and looked at the pitch-black night sky. It was unknown what past events she had recalled, but her expression was extremely melancholic. The first area, above a glacier. Qin Feiyang and Yan Wei appeared out of thin air. Yan Wei looked around and asked suspiciously, Where is this? Look below. Qin Feiyang scanned the area below. Yan Wei looked down, and a lake entered his line of sight. The lake wasn't very big, and there was a thick layer of ice on the surface of the lake. White mist rose, and the cold air was oppressive. Qin Feiyang said, Right now we are in the first area, and the teleportation altar that leads to the Great Qin Empire is under this ice lake. Yan Wei's eyes suddenly revealed a strange light. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, asking, Wasn't the Heavenly Spiral tribe also sent here? Why don't we go look for them? Qin Feiyang was stunned, shook his head and smiled. If you didn't remind me, I would have really forgotten about them. Shua, finished. With a wave of his hand, Fatso appeared and said, The fate of the Heavenly Spiral tribe is completely up to you. Do as you see fit. Back then, the leader of the Heavenly Spiral tribe almost killed you. We definitely can't let it go just like that. Fatso's eyes flashed with killing intent. I understand. Yan Wei, accompany him. Remember, you must be careful. Qin Feiyang reminded. Although Mu Qing was trapped in the inland sea and could only come out in the early hours of the morning, he could still predict his approximate location. The most important thing was that the white-robed old man didn't enter the inland sea. This was what worried him. When Mu Qing predicted his approximate location, he would definitely let the white-robed old man chase after him. Although the white-robed old man was in the central divine kingdom and couldn't directly open the portal to the first area, don't forget that the Mu family still had a real space-time portal. So, he couldn't let his guard down now. Fatso naturally thought of this and nodded to Qin Feiyang, turned around and flew away with Yan Wei. Boom! But at this moment, a terrifying aura descended above the three of them. Qin Feiyong was startled and quickly raised his head to look. Fatso and Qin Feiyong also hurriedly braked and stopped in the void, looking up at the sky. Immediately, the three of them changed color. They saw an old man appear out of thin air in the sky. He had white hair and wore a long robe. His aura was unfathomable. Who else could it be but the white-robed old man? How did he catch up so quickly? He even knows our exact location. Could it be that Mu Qing has already left the inland sea? Fatso and Yan Wei were bewildered. No. Mu Qing must have predicted our approximate location and sensed our purpose. Therefore, he asked him to come here directly to intercept us. This bastard, I really don't dare to be careless for a moment. Let's go. Qin Feiyong's eyes darkened. He turned into a stream of light and plunged into the ice lake below. Fatso and Qin Feiyong didn't dare to hesitate and immediately dived into the ice lake. Sure enough, he's here. The white-robed old man smiled coldly. Terrifying divine power poured down and pounced on Qin Feiyong and the other two. Boom! The entire ice lake instantly exploded. It's over. Feeling the surging divine power, Yan Wei and Fatso's hearts sank. If they were imprisoned by this divine power, they wouldn't be able to break out even if they opened the door of potential. However, Qin Feiyong was very calm. He stared at the bottom of the lake, his eyes flickering. Suddenly, with a wave of his hand, he grabbed Fatso and Qin Feiyong and instantly disappeared without a trace. Inside the ancient castle. What are we doing in the ancient castle? If we're trapped here, won't we be doomed? Yan Wei looked at Qin Feiyong in surprise. Fatso was also suspicious. However, as if he suddenly thought of something, his eyes flashed. He looked at Yan Wei and smiled. Don't worry, let's wait for a good show. Qin Feiyong was also full of smiles. A good show? You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.